Hello and welcome back to Blood and Ashes. This is episode 33. I'm your host Mo, and I'm joined as always by my highly prepared friends Willie,
Masar al-Khairi.
and Jody.
Say hello to my little friend.
Hey man, you've done that one before.
No, I have not.
I refer to that voice, that accent.
I'm not good at accents. That's but probably they just all sound the same. It might have been Russian. I don't know.
Yeah. Russian Tony Montana. What was yours, Vil?
Arabic, and it's really difficult.
Yeah.
Oh, you'd think an Afrikaans speaker wouldn't have any troubles with those guttural and
But
odd
the
sounds.
Khs are spelled with H and K's, and it's weird. Like LKH. It's doesn't. Now I understand this that it's left to right scribble, right to left scribbles because it's just weird. Anyway, interesting.
Sure. So after last episode's epic history lesson, I'm ready to crack on with some action. And I don't know about you guys, but like this section that we're covering this evening, specifically Perrin's, is sort of like crackling with potential energy, right? Like we know where that whole Two Rivers scene is heading, and seeing the beginnings of it sort of starting to formulate is just super, super exciting.
Uh-huh. I've read ahead. There's no helping it. I am 80% done with this book.
Wow. Yeah, it just pulls you ahead, hey? Like it's still just charging. I'm trying to savor this again just because I know later it does slow down. So I'm reveling in this, frenetic pace that the book is setting, but like shit is happening.
Well, the thing is, there's like a very tight emotional connection to this part of the story. It's parents, it's Perrin, it's not fighting and Forsaken that we have not had much understanding of.
No.
We don't know much about it.
Bilal.
This is Perrin. Like it's a personal, deeply personal stand, and I think we were so critical of the Perrin and Fael and their whole little love quabble that they had in the stone and before. But I mean, all of that plays into this, like how
It does.
committed she is to him, and I mean, that's the stuff that keeps you captivated, like the emotion, not
Yeah.
just swords and guns and fireballs and blazing, and that
Although I
keeps
do
you
like the swords and
captivated
guns
when
in
you're
this
young.
series.
That's more bows and pitchforks and farmhouse rooftops and the like. Yeah, no, I'm just I couldn't put it down. I have not read ahead, but I have to stop myself from not reading ahead, and it's it's mostly so that I don't taint my opinions and comments in the episode with things. I mean, I say that, but really what it is so I don't conflate them and actually speak as if I think it's happening in this recording, and it's actually for the next episode, because it's hard for me to sort of draw the line sometimes.
I did a good spell of reading ahead, but I'm only 2 chapters ahead of where we're ending today's episode. So also again holding back because I started getting too far ahead of myself.
Oh, no, I'm on like chapter 47 or 49 or something. Way ahead.
Nice. It's just a testament to how good the books are, right? Like they pull you ahead. And again, our often mentioned friend Jethro has just read the end of this book, and he was messaging us saying, this is so unbelievably good. Why has it taken him so long to read these books? And I go, I don't know. I've been telling you for literally decades. You should be reading them.
It's no one's fault but your own. Next is Craig. Try and get him on board. It's like trying to
Get him.
blood from a stone.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Okay, so what you guys are going to have to do, though, is just put a little stopper on that excitement about plowing ahead as we take a little walk down memory lane in a little section I like to call callbacks. Okay, so let's start with some listener submissions. We have a new listener called Mick Halverson who writes in to say that the The Guy Shane idea is at least partially based on a Native American practice called counting coup. It's spelled coup, C-O-U-P, like coup d'etat, but that's a French term, so I'm pretty sure that that's not applicable here. So I'm going to keep saying coup. If it's wrong, sorry, don't at me. It's something that happened when Native American tribes were in battle. They would touch their enemies for honor, proving their courage and skill. And they would earn like not just honor, but like a notch on their coup stick. They would have a stick that they used to like touch the person without, actually attacking them. Or they would earn like an eagle feather or something. It was all about honor. So, that's
G-Ito.
I know, like what an incredible thing to read in a fantasy novel and talk about how rad it is, and then that actually comes from real people doing that, which is awesome.
That is very, very cool for me in the sense that we are now in essentially a global world that's well connected, and the thoughts and histories can so easily come out now. There's things that we brought in that says, yeah, that relates to the Zulus, the short spears, the buckler. That is something that very much we could see. And now
Yes.
that's something that we didn't. And now we've got this platform where the story can sort of almost a little bit of detective work. Like
Yeah.
that's where that comes from. Love it. It's great.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
It is awesome. Mick also wrote in to say that fancloth is in fact made by the Aes Sedai, like Jody said, by a special terangrill. It's the only way it can be made. And he also enlightened us that it is Birgitte who tells Matt the name of his spear. And in the old tongue, Ashandarai, or however Jody pronounces it, literally means sword spear.
Aptly named.
Yes. He also said that Chuon likes it so much when she sees it because of the ravens on it that she offers Matt 10 times what he paid for it.
Oh.
Wow.
Careful, Tuan. Careful. I also, like in the last episode, I just glossed over because it was late at night and I'd been talking a lot by the time we got to Matt, being let down from the tree. I sort of glossed over what the text on the spear was, but it says, thus is our treaty written, thus is agreement made. Thought is the arrow of time, memory never fades. What was asked is given, the price is paid. That's the inscription on it. So that is definitely a custom-made weapon.
Yeah.
That's not applicable to anybody else.
Memory never fades. They've obviously never tried Villy's homebrew.
But that's why Matt also chuckles, it's like, oh, funny joke.
Yeah.
Joke's on them.
It is. I think it was either the last episode or maybe the one before it even, just briefly touched on Tom's letter to Moraine. And I've been thinking about it and I wanted to actually just read it on air because you guys haven't read it since you read the books last. And it gives some pretty cool hints. And like I said, with Tom and Moraine, like I always look for just every little thing that sort of helps me, make their relationship make sense.
Yeah.
And this, when you read...
It is a struggle. Their relationship doesn't make sense.
It comes out of nowhere.
And it's...
so listen to this letter and tell me that this is an obvious end point for their interactions. My dearest Tom, there are many words I would like to write to you, words from my heart, but I have put this off because I know that I must, and now there is little time. There are many things I cannot tell you lest I bring disaster, but what I can, I will. Heed carefully what I say. In a short while, I will go down to the docks, and there I will confront Lanfear. How can I know that? That secret belongs to others. Suffice it that I know, and let that foreknowledge stand as proof for the rest of what I say. When you receive this, you will be told that I am dead. All will believe that. I am not dead, and it may be that I shall live to my appointed years. It also may be that you and Matt Cawthon and another, a man I do not know, will try to rescue me. I say because it may be that you will not or cannot, or because Matt may refuse. He does not hold me in the affection that you seem to, and he has his reasons which he no doubt thinks are good. If you try, it must be only you and Matt and one other. More will mean death for all. Fewer will mean death for all. Even if you come only with Matt and one other, death also may come. I have seen you try and die. one or two or all three. I've seen myself die in the attempt. I've seen all of us live and die as captives. Should you decide to make the attempt anyway, young Matt knows the way to find me, yet you must not show him this letter until he asks about it. That is of the utmost importance. He must know nothing that is in this letter until he asks. Events must play out in certain ways, whatever the costs. If you see Lan again, tell him that all of this is for the best. His destiny follows a different path from mine. I wish him all the happiness with Nynaeve. A final point. Remember what you know about the game of snakes and foxes. Remember and heed. It is time, and I must do what must be done. May the light illumine you and give you joy, my dearest Tom, whether or not we ever see one another again. Moraine.
I'm not crying. You're crying.
It's just raining in my eyes.
It is raining out here, although I'm inside. What book is this from? How far in the future?
Shit, now you've cornered me.
Oh, God, first pin of the day.
But very, very, very specific. I'm about to go down to the docks and where I will confront Lanfear. We never learn what Moraine asks the Elfin. But is that the only place she could have learnt of this? Or maybe the reason I bring it up in this episode, maybe because she went into Rhuidean. Did she see something there? Don't know. But this is like very specific. She has seen them live and die as captives. She has been shown multiple ways that this could end, which is not how the Elfin answer questions.
No. The only place we, thus far, that we've been introduced to where people have lived many lives is when Rand pulled them through the portal the wrong way around. And they all, including the horses, lived that many lives and died that many times.
And
so
the test.
Other than that, there's not been a mechanism that have introduced this.
The test for accepted?
Mm-hmm.
True.
Or the novices, which one was it? They saw multiple versions of the future.
The accepted test, yeah.
Accepted test.
Accepted.
Well, maybe there is some archers that is hanging around in Rhuidean that shows you the future.
Like I know all of this has been answered already. It's coming in the future books. But maybe that's what happens when a non-Aiel goes through those glass columns.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I just thought it was super interesting, and again, like just left field affection. My dearest Tom. Anyway, since we can't answer that question, come on, all our regular listeners, write in, and all our sleuths out there with the pointed knowledge of the specific books. And you guys have been great so far. Enlighten us. Then a much quicker one. We asked if Muradin was Couladin's brother, something we should have known, really, considering the amount of time we spent on those chapters. And yes, of course he was. Our suspicions were correct, because it was probably said many times.
Yes.
At one point in those Aiel visions, Jonai is standing looking at where there used to be that coastal city that you mentioned, Joe. That city was called Comel. It wasn't one of the other cities that we'd read about. Then you also asked, where is Rhuidean? Has anyone ever seen it on a map? And I've seen a couple of people draw maps, and it is, as we suspect, and I think, Joe, you might even have alluded to this, that it is actually fairly close to the Dragon Wall, pretty much on the same line of latitude as Cairhien. So it's right there, like where Ruach in these chapters refers to it as the sharing of the water, where I forget the fucking Aiel's names now, but that were, talking to Garan. I would remember the guy from the town and the stupid Cairhien and not the legendary Aiel. But from there, they're told that the Aiel are busy moving, and they cross the spine of the world there. And not far from there is where they actually establish Rhuidean. And then on some of the maps that I've seen, people point out where the different holds are as well for the different Aiel septs and things, and they're all deeper into the west. So it's like if you had to cross the Dragon Wall from Cairhien, you would hit Rhuidean first and then travel all the way through. And I think the Shido are like the deepest in there, closest to Shara. Yeah. Then we asked, how old is Cadsuane? We took a couple of guesses. I think my guess was 600. That was not the case.
What is the
It was
case?
quite wrong. She's born in the year 705 New Era, and the events of the books currently are 999 New Era. So at the time of asking, so like where we were in the story when we asked the question, she is 294 years old.
Still, and not a spring chicken. That's
No.
that's some age.
At one point, she was destined to be the Amelin seat. Like there were rumors of her being raised, and she went and she disappeared. She went into exile for 10 years and then came back to the tower. It's like, oh, you got a new Amelin. Okay, cool. I can come back now.
Dodged a bullet.
Bullet dodged. Yeah.
For a little while.
Yes. Oh, and then we also had a bit of a chat about like the insectoid helmets that some of the soldiers from those Aiel visions were wearing, and like how they could potentially have influenced the look of the helmets that Arthur Hawkwing's descendants wore in Seanchan. I went because we were thinking like, did some of these people actually make it across the Aryth Ocean? There's 2,500 years between the events that we saw in the vision and when Hawkwing's son took the people across the Aryth Ocean. So I don't think any of those people were necessarily any of their actual helmets, because the whole collapse and the whole breaking happens between that as well. So like civilization collapses to barbarism and complete fucking dog eat dog before it's built up again to the point where Arthur Hawkwing unites all the 10 nations or whatever it was, and his son goes across the ocean.
But he did take Aes Sedai with him when he left, because when they got to the other side, it was that Aes Sedai who created the Adam and all of that stuff, and then got imprisoned herself, got necklaced herself. Well, that's a different thing.
Yes, was she? Oh no, God, here we go. Deanna was her name, something like that. Was she an Aes Sedai or just an Aes Sedai from the Seanchan side of the world? Because they were also called Aes Sedai, but they had no concept of the White Tower. So they were stranded on Seanchan during the breaking before the tower was reformed on the mainland.
Well, whatever. She was Aes Sedai, so my point being that she may have remembered or have knowledge of those kind of helmets or something, so that kind of knowledge may have survived.
Maybe,
on that side.
Yeah. The only reason I would question whether Arthur Hawkwing's son took an Aes Sedai with him is because I think by that stage Arthur Hawkwing had already turned on the Aes Sedai based on the sort of like Ishamal turned him against the Aes Sedai.
I hate to throw spanners into your
your
big discussion there, but that insectoid shape helmet could just be a very practical thing for blocking blows of a sword, and it just maybe works well, so people adopt it all over the show.
In the Age of Legends, those helmets had shock visors, so I think they've got like high-tech, shielding and stuff built into them with their shock lances and all those things.
I just had a thought that maybe it looks something similar to like a stormtrooper helmet. That look like they've got little mandibles at the bottom.
Yeah. Ooh. Not quite like the samurai helmets that we imagine the Seanchan, because that's how I imagine the Seanchan looking.
I think there's artwork as well that shows that. Yeah.
Okay.
But actually, they were stormtroopers. Had it wrong this whole time.
They weren't samurai; they were stormtroopers. Get your pop culture references correct. Okay, that's it for callbacks. Not a long one at all.
What? All right, everybody, we'll be home early tonight.
So this is also going to be quick, because previously on Blood and Ashes, we had the whole Aiel history, and Matt is revived from death. And Perrin, Gaul, Loyal, Fail, Bane, Chiad, they all arrive in Eamon's Field only to learn that Perrin's family has been killed, that the Luans and Matt's mom and sisters have been captured by Whitecloaks and are kept in a prison camp at Watch Hill, and that Tam and Abel are sort of Robin Hood and the Merry Menning their way around the Westwood, hiding out and firing their bows expertly at Whitecloaks. And Trollocs, I would imagine. And Mistress Elvire took the group, I'm just going to say Perrin and his crew, to a hiding place where they find, at the very end of our last episode, Thomas and Ivan, who we know are Verin and Alana's warders. And that's where we finished off. So that brings us now to chapter 31, called Assurances. Take it away, Jody.
I shall take it away. We meet up, well, we end up now with Perrin as Ivon returns and leads them back to the old sick house where the Aes Sedai are waiting for them. As if you remember, he went ahead just to go make sure that it's cool to bring this huge group of people with to the Aes Sedai. Gaul mutters that the warders are very good. Bane and Chayad pretend that they are unimpressed, but they are. They're lying. Upon arrival, impressed by how the warders move so silently through the underbrush, I mean. Upon arrival, Perrin recognizes Varen and Alana. Of course, he spent that time with Varen and the Shanarans, but Alana has only seen once. He recognizes only thinks I've only seen her once, and I imagine that was at Faldara.
Yeah.
Was she with the contingent? Yeah, okay.
She was.
So, Mistress Elvira is very apologetic, but Varen is keen to learn more about the Aiel. They're not so keen. And pick Loyal's brain a bit, and Loyal is very keen about that. He's stoked. She says that she's learned some amazing things in Ogier books, and he's like, yeah, I got a lot of books. I can tell you some more stuff. Varen asks if the other two boys came with Perrin. Perrin ignores her question pointedly and then just demands to know why she is there. This is much to the shock of Mistress Elvira and Loyal again, who's mutters about angering Aes Sedai and blah, 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 blah. But, yeah. But Varen tells them, of course, that not to worry, that she and Perrin are very old friends. She knows he means no harm and all of that. And she tells Mistress Elvira that she should at least head back to Emansfield, where it's safer and people might notice she's missing, but also just to get her out there so they can talk their secret talks. That's English. Alana says they will take care of him to Mistress Elvira. Like, don't worry, we'll take care of him. And Perrin wonders to himself, like, whoa, that could have meant anything the way she said it. Like, is she going to heal his wounds, or is he going to be sleeping with the fishes tonight? You know, like, could go either way.
Yep.
So after Mistress Elvira has left, Varen offers her condolences, of course, to Perrin, saying that if she could have helped with saving his family, she would have. But Perrin is not having any of it, and saying again, like, you still haven't answered my question. You know, like, I'm onto you, you tricksy Aes Sedai. Like, you're not going to avoid my question. And this time it's Fael's turn to be shocked, and she basically mimics exactly the expression and tone of voice of Mistress Elvira. She starts learning a lot from Mistress Elvira in this part. But of course, Perrin is skeptical about what Varen is saying, because he's like, look, Whitecloaks, there's Trollocs, and now there's two Aes Sedai in the two rivers. Like, this is not a coincidence. But Varen's like, yeah, you're right. It is no coincidence at all that we are here. They are looking for recruits for the tower. Like, after Moraine found two candidates that are the strongest that anyone has ever seen in 1,000 years, or whatever, how many years. That's incredible. So they came back to the two rivers, where the old blood is very strong, to look for more, and they've already found 5 in, I think it was Watch Hill, just in Watch Hill, because they were only been in Watch Hill a week. They found 4 who could be taught, and 1 who had the spark inborn in her. Like, none of them are anywhere near as strong as Egwene and Nynaeve, but that's incredible. That's like more than they find in years in some places, going all over the country. But they had to stop their search because they were interrupted when the Whitecloaks arrived in Watch Hill, and they had to be secreted out by the women's circle, hidden away, and they had to leave. So that's the only 5 that they found. And they talk about how difficult it is to find these new recruits, and mention Sheriam's theory here that maybe they have been culling the ability to channel out of humanity by killing all of the men who can channel. So, you know, if there's no men who can channel, it's difficult to pass on that gene, or it's at least more difficult. The Whites as well, the White Aja, have a very logical plan, very logical, to pair up gentled men with random women and make babies, which I suppose to a White sounds really good on paper, but there's no sane woman who would ever agree to that. And this is what Varen mentioned to Elviaran, and suggested that perhaps the Whites should be the surrogate mothers, which Alviarin had a absolute fit about. She was not amused. But I mean, look, it is a good idea. It makes sense, logically speaking. But if you want to do it yourselves.
Yeah.
Hold on.
What?
Is there any Aes Sedai that have ever had a child?
Or more pins.
Dude,
Probably.
I mean, it's just come sort of to my thought. Like, you never hear or read of an Aes Sedai that's have got children, or hey, meet my children. This is, or maybe they're scared that they have a boy and they're gonna have to kill it. Or
they're all very career focused, aren't they?
Yeah. Like
but I mean,
the kind of career
you're
that
telling me
don't-
there's no oopsies in being 400 years.
in the greens, there's probably thousands of illegitimate
Not so much the
children.
reds.
No.
Not so much the Reds, no.
Yeah.
Good question. Pin it.
Pin it, but definitely there must be little mistakes, planned children, definitely.
Law of averages, right?
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep my mouth shut over here now.
So Perrin again is like, yeah, nice story, but why aren't you doing something about all of these Whitecloaks and Trollocs, and you're just sitting here hiding in the woods? Perrin tells him about the oaths and how restricted they are in how they can use them. They can, they can't use them for revenge, for example, which could be a case because Alanna has already lost a warder. He was crossing a field, and she says, like, the way she describes it as well, like she felt every single arrow pierce his body and felt him die. This is something that comes up, and I've been watching a lot of the interviews about the show, and they talk a lot about this Aes Sedai connection, which has been in my mind a lot lately. And this is another, just popped up here in the books again. Like, imagine feeling death, but not actually being the one that is dying. So that must be crazy, psychologically as well.
Mm-hmm.
But so she could use the one power. She could have, if she had been there, to defend him and herself, but she can't use it for revenge to go and kill Whitecloaks. And even though Whitecloaks are a giant bunch of assholes, they are not dark friends. So she can't just go and
aren't
kill
they?
them.
I mean,
no.
They got Audis hanging out with them.
Oh, he's a dark friend.
Yeah, but I mean, you mix yourself with the scum, then you sort of taint yourself.
Everybody just has to die now, like all of them, because of 3 guys that we know are dark friends in the entire Whitecloaks.
Was Eamon Volder also a dark friend, or just a jerk?
Yo,
both.
It's a tough one. I don't think so. I don't think he was a dark friend. But again, going to be proven wrong. But anyway, she says, look, we have been doing stuff. We have killed a number of Trollocs. We have, dozens at least, and 2 Fades as well. But again, they are limited. There's only 2 of them with 2 warders. And if 50 Trollocs come down on them at the same time, they're going to die. There's nothing they can do to protect themselves from like 3 Fades and 50 Trollocs. So they've got to be careful.
I mean,
they're doing what they can.
They can't also channel like heaps, because that will just draw the Fades down on them.
Exactly. That's what she mentions as well. Like that, the Fades can kind of, in a way, sense that they're channeling. So if they do fight too many and too often, it'll draw more attention to them. And that's, the opposite of what they're trying to do.
Also, if they draw the attention of the Whitecloaks, they can't do anything about it because they can't fight the Whitecloaks with the power.
Well, if the Whitecloaks attack them, they can defend themselves.
They still try not to.
Yeah. Step 1 is avoid that situation. Yeah. Best way to not get hit is to not be there, as Mr. Miyagi once said. All right. So Perrin then at this point as well thinks about, like how Rand killed every Trolloc in the stone just by thinking about it. And then, of course, realizes that, look, maybe these 2 together would be strong, but I don't think they're as strong as Rand. But he has no idea, obviously, about the strengths of channelers. Like, he is way off. The 2 of them together are not even scratching the surface of Rand's power.
No.
So anyway, they all sit down for some tea, as is the custom. There's always some tea having going on. And they tell the story of how they got there and how they used the ways to get there. And then the Aes Sedai give everybody a little bit of healing. While healing Perrin, Alanna talks about how Elida and the others are freaking out about how the Amyrlin seat just let them all go, like 3 to Viren from this one town. And so there's a lot of dissent in the tower. We hear a lot about this at the moment. Like, we haven't been to the tower and had like an insight into the politics there in quite a while. So this is our first little glimpse. So, Elida is close to seizing power at this point. And she says, like, if I had been the Amyrlin, I would have tied strings to you or at least bonded you. And Perrin at this point, like, tries to jerk his head away from her when he hears about the bonding. And she says to him, I am not so lost to custom yet as to bond a man against his will. So there's a little bit of foreshadowing from Alana.
Yeah.
Not so lost to custom yet. It's coming sooner than you think.
She that's a whole separate sentence at the end. She says, not quite yet.
Yes, not quite yet. So is she already planning?
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you guys, because I wrote down the exact same quote, obviously. I mean, it's loaded, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, she could have designs on doing that now. She could.
Yeah. I mean, is she aware that Rand is the Dragon Reborn, or possibly the Dragon Reborn?
She might be there to sort of like suss out. She asks here, did the other boys come with you?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Perrin shuts her down and he goes, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
He ignores her question. And Varen also, and it's coming up now, but Varen says to Perrin, watch yourself around Alana.
Yeah.
So like Alana's already behaving in a way or said something to make Varen understand that Alana could potentially pose a threat, to Perrin or some of the other boys in some capacity.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe her plan is here to like, was it because it's Alana that tells the story about the descent in the tower and stuff as well, right? Like, maybe Alana has come down here expressly to tie those ties to the boys. That could be her mission.
Where's her loyalty? I'm still confused about exactly where her loyalty is, even within the Tower factions.
She was in Faldara with
the Emerald.
Swan, and I seem to remember reading somewhere, this could be wrong as well, but that, Swan would have taken Aes Sedai with her that are loyal to her, but that was also Leandrin. So ignore what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, she was there.
Will do.
Rewind 20 seconds of your life.
Maybe someone gets put forward by the Archers who go out on a...
there were a number of
cruises out for diplomatic. They're like, cool, you go.
I'm sure the Hall would decide like who goes with. Send a contingent of every color and of every Archer.
Nah, they pull straws during dinner
yes,
time.
That's how the Aes Sedai do things. Should we gentle this
Rock,
man?
Paper, scissors.
Pull a straw. Rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah,
what do you choose?
Yeah, don't trust Alana. Don't like her. From previous reads, just don't like her.
There's also there's a lot of parents thinking to himself in this chapter, like trying to read Varen and Alana, and Varen is just very unreadable completely. She may have he sees the only tick he sees, the giveaway is that her eyes like become sharper when she's not pretending to be this like silly absent-minded brown. He notices that. But he says with Alana, it's like 1 minute she is serious as hell, and the next she's giggling and laughing, and the next she's prone to fits of anger and rage. Like she's all over the place, and that's kind of like off-putting.
Quiet.
Indeed. Does she smell wrong? He never says anything about her smell.
No, he never mentions her smell.
I don't know. They haven't said anything yet, but like I remember her being quite affected by the death of her warder, like sometimes just crying uncontrollably and that sort of stuff. So she might just be having some kind of PTSD after sensing her warder dying, right? Like maybe she is just all over the shop because she's feeling a lot.
Yeah. Could be. But anyway, just then, Tam and Abel arrive with some rabbits for dinner. Both are amazed to see Loial. Visible shock on their faces as they scan the room. As Tam does that, his eyes fall onto the Aiel, and there's a flicker of recognition on his face. That Perrin's noticing everything, eh?
Fucking sharp.
Sharp. Before noticing, like the last person he notices is Perrin, and then he's like, "Oh my god, Perrin, my boy, my lad!" Hey, he's very stoked, and all the big hugs and like, welcome home. And the first thing is Rand with you? And Abel's like, what about Matt? So Perrin tells him like, no, they're in Tyr. It's wrong. They were in Tyr when you left them. And he notices Varen out of the corner of his eye glance at him, like, because she knows what Tyr means for Rand. Alana this whole time is just like rummaging in her bags and like doing stuff in the background, but he's certain her ears are wide open. She is picking everything up. Tam has asked some other questions that earned Perrin some shut the fuck up looks from Varen. So he just says, Aes Sedai don't always tell him everything, and which seems enough for Tam. He's like, that's about right. So he kind of believes that because
that tracks.
Yeah, not unusual. Perrin asks Tam and Abel if they want to, talk outside for a bit, and Fael stands up to follow them out, but immediately sits back down again when Perrin just shakes his head, and he's like, what? This is weird. She just agreed and sat down again. Maybe she's sick. He actually thinks like maybe she's ill. Something is way off. So outside now, Tam and Abel give him shit about his beard. There's a little bit of ribbing about that. Admire the horses. They tease him a little bit about Fael. Like, oh, she's a fierce one. She's going to keep you on your toes and all that kind of stuff. Before they get down to business. Before they do that, though, Perrin does listen and smell, which he didn't do in the hut. He listens and there's no sounds except that you can smell a fox has been by 23 and a half minutes ago and things like that. He's very precise. But yep, they're alone. So Tam and Abel mention that they heard that all three of them are Ta'veren from the Aes Sedai and asks if that's true. Perrin lies and says that he hasn't seen anything about that of himself or Mat, pointedly omitting Rand's name, which earns him a glance from Tam. And he thinks to himself, shit, I'm terrible at keeping other people's secrets. Maybe I just better shut up instead of saying anything. Tam and Abel are not happy about the Aes Sedai being so interested in them, obviously. They went to Tar-Valon. We heard about this when we were in the tower, in tower time. So here we get confirmation from them. It was a year ago, and they left with no answers, but pockets full of gold.
That's always good.
Not if you're going to look for your son and want to know if he's alive. The gold is not that great. Rather have my son, please. Can I swap this gold for my son?
Our two sons.
Two sons. So they offer their condolences, of course, on the loss of his family. And at this point is when a raven flutters in and sits on a branch nearby. Before Perrin can even knock an arrow into his bow, both Tam and Abel have already planted arrows in this poor creature. Tam's arrow in its head, and Perrin is not surprised or impressed because that is just the way that Tam rolls.
Yeah,
it is not an accident, and he thinks to himself like, Fael, I told you that these guys are better at me than with the bow, and she didn't believe him. Like, if only she had seen this.
Yeah.
They mentioned that there are all sorts of dead animals that they are finding around the two rivers. There's rabbits, deer, foxes. They even found a bear. And just left there, not skinned, not eaten, just left to rot. And Perrin thinks immediately, oh, fuck, Slayer. So not only is he in the dream, in the wolf dream, but he's in the flesh as well, in the two rivers.
Oh, yes.
So, the plot is thickening. So they begin the plan. They're going to plan on how to set Mat's family free. They're going to, what's the rescue? What's that's going to be? Give me the layout of the camp. We have to get in there. We have to save Mat's sisters and his mother, I think. And the Luhans as well are there. So that's step one. But they tell him, look, it's a serious military camp. It's pretty fortified. They were there a couple of weeks back or a couple of days back or whatever, and they just had a look, and that earned Abel an arrow in his body somewhere, which the Aes Sedai healed. And that's why they keep bringing gifts to the Aes Sedai, like rabbits for dinner, even though the Aes Sedai tell them, don't worry about it. It's like, no. We want to keep in their good graces. They're building up some credit because the gift from an Aes Sedai always has a hook in it. And they don't want to have any hooks in them whatsoever. So, he says, after we've rescued the two rivers folk, we're going to go into the woods and we're going to be hunting some Trollocs. So they think it's because he is bitter about his family and he's after revenge, and they give him some advice about hey man, don't let it eat you up inside. But he's like, no, look, there's no emotion here. This has just got to be done. It's very practical from his side. So after the rescue, it's Trolloc hunting time. And there is a chapter called Hunter of Trollocs. Have we done that, or is it coming?
It's coming.
All right. You see, this is what you were talking about earlier, conflating things. Indeed. I regret nothing. So, we jump
I would never
over.
begrudge you reading forward, Joe.
So now we jump to a different POV. We're with old Dane. Dane Bornhold is returning from a patrol. What?
Dane Borehole.
Borehole. Is that what I said? I didn't even realize it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what he is. Aptly
Yeah,
named
he is.
again. So he's coming back from a patrol with 11 dead Whitecloaks. I've written afterwards here in capital letters. Yay! Trollocs had ambushed them several times now. Like, this is not the first time they've been ambushed. And he is really worried about this because this is not typical Trolloc behavior. And how the hell did they know where they were going to be? Normally, like, if they came across some Trollocs by accident and there was a scuffle and a fight, okay. But every time they are lying, the Trollocs are lying in wait for them. So they know that they are coming.
But also only patrols led by Bornhold.
Ah, I missed that.
I mean,
Right.
that is
Fane.
interesting.
Is what you were going
I'm
to say.
trying to play dumb like Bornhold, but yes, we know that it's
No.
Fane. Probably just trying to take Bornhold out of the picture.
Yeah, look, it could also. My also thought was it could be Slayer because he has control of Grey Men. He has. He's a leader in the forces of the dark. Because later on, Fane, Ordeath, whatever his name is thinking about how useful the Whitecloaks are at this moment. So I don't know why he would be trying to kill Bornhold at this point. If later on in this chapter he's thinking these are useful tools. But anyway, we'll get there. He's overlooking a Tinker camp at this point, which is busy packing up and ready to leave. It's Rain and his folk, or Rain, I call it Rain. He orders Farron, the 100-man. I don't know if we talked about this because this is the second time this guy's popped up. Farron, the 100-man. Is he like a sergeant or just like a troop
Something
leader?
like that.
Yeah, like he's the 100th.
Is he the one that also reports back after Child Byar, like goes across the river at Tarrant Ferry to go speak to the people?
Yes.
Something along those lines.
That guy.
Yeah,
I don't know if
he's named.
Yeah. So he pops up again. I think he's just like, the guy that's just above the average soldier kind of a guy.
Yeah.
So he tells him anyway that he can tell the Tinkers that they're free to leave, but they can only go south, which is a bit of a bummer because you can't go past what's the river's name there?
Devon Ride, the White River.
The White River, yeah. So you can't
Or
cross
the River
it anyway.
White. My wife grew up in a town called White River, so I always say I think it's the River White.
Witrivier.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of pointless, and he knows it because then he's going to have to still have control of them anyway. But a little glimmer of hope for this man at this point because he calls Farron back at the last minute. He says, "Use your words." Basically, there's no need for boots and fists. Like Rain has ears. And you could visibly see the disappointment on Farron's face. Like, damn, don't get to beat up some hippies today. Like,
I mean, Jesus Christ,
so many horrible people, and I mean, Dane is one of them. But there is a little glimmer of hope for him here, and I started to like him. Well, dislike him less because of this.
Careful, Jody. Careful.
Easy. Edit that out, Moritz. So. And he's also thinking as well, we get like a lot of inner monologue at this point, and he's thinking about this light forsaken place, because it has to be light forsaken if there's dark friends everywhere, and there's Trollocs going around, and like this place is horrible. As usual, but just typical dark friends everywhere and Trollocs, and then some more random white cloak fanatical thoughts. All right. Byar reports, Child Byar is back, and reports that Ordeath has returned to camp with 2 dead Whitecloaks who were supposedly killed by Trollocs. Dane asks him which 2 Whitecloaks, and it's the exact 2 that Dane had sent with him. And this is, again, not the first time that this has happened. Every time he sends people to keep an eye on him, they come back dead, supposedly killed by Trollocs, and he thinks, this guy must think I'm a bloody fool if I'm going to believe that crap. Stop killing my men. So he orders Byar to go there and tell him to get this sack of bones back into his tent. He wants to speak to him right now. It's time for a serious chat. So Ordeath, when he swaggers into Dane's tent, his Lugard accent is in full activation, and he starts telling some story to Dane about his men, how they fought bravely. But before he can even finish his sentence, Dane backhands him with a gauntleted hand as well. Very nice. Again, my dislike down a little notch for this man. Backhanding Fane, you win points in my book. But then his Lugard accent disappears. Now, at this point in this little paragraph, I think there's 3 personalities coming out,
Jesus.
because there's this Lugarder Fane kind of a accent, I think, that it's Peyton Fane. Then after he gets slapped, he starts, dribbling spit from his mouth and speaking like in a viperish tone, like he's gone completely insane. And that might be the combination of Mordeth and Fane. This is my theories, at least.
Right.
Yeah, or just whatever. And then later, afterwards, when he regains himself, his Lugarder accent is replaced by a grander, more commanding tone, urging Dane that they should work together, to root out these dark friends. And this is like a completely different character now. So I don't know. Did you guys pick up on that as well?
Yeah, he's a nutbag.
He's a nutbag, yes.
Well, I always thought that the more sort of like commanding tone is coming from Mordeth, and like his crazed tone is maybe the version of himself, like when he was that hound
Beast,
that has been tortured by the Dark One and by Fades and all that sort of stuff. And the Lugarder accent is just what's left of the original Fane.
Yeah, but there's definitely three personalities popping out there. Yeah, maybe getting struck in the face kind of brought back the memories of the torture and the beatings and whatnot, and brought out that animalistic side of him again.
There's a part, I think, in this chapter where he's walking and he laughs to himself and he can hear himself how crazy he sounds, but he doesn't care.
Zero shits given. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he reminds Dane at this point of the 3 boys, like naming them by, their full names, and the last is Perrin's, and putting emphasis on Perrin's name at the end as well. He knows Dane's feelings towards Perrin and is manipulating him, well, trying to manipulate him. Dane is not totally being controlled yet.
No.
So here we find out again that it was Ordeath that killed Perrin's family, not the Trollocs. This is a huge mic drop moment. And Dane covered it up, not because he thought it was right or because he wanted to help Ordeath, but he knew that he would lose control of the region if the people there discovered that it was actually not the Whitecloaks, but I mean, they wouldn't care. To them, to the average Two Rivers person, it would be the Whitecloaks who killed that entire Ibarra family. So children, everything. And Dane, again, not happy, and he says he will not condone the murder of children. Ordeath reminds him of the attack by the Grey Men. So this is another thing that happened off screen that we didn't even notice about, but apparently they were like, Dane was amongst 50 different men when he was attacked by 2 Grey Men. Nobody noticed, he didn't notice, except Ordeath, who murdered these 2 men and killed them. So this is, again, I don't think it's Fane that's trying to kill Dane. Fane Dane. It's Slayer. Slayer has been sent to get rid of him for some reason.
Right.
Only the Shadow knows. And there's a nice thing about it as well, where like after they disposed of the bodies, they threw away the daggers, they buried them in the ground, and when he threw the first spade full of dirt on top of the blades, they hissed. So like devil blades, man. Devil blades. So Fane says that he thinks that the Shadow is trying to kill him. Like the Shadow is after him. So like I think just the Shadow is at this point is just trying to kill everyone. They want Dane out of the picture because it's being, patrols led by Dane that are being under attack. But we do know that Slayer is out there as well trying to kill. Well, I think at least that Slayer is out there trying to get rid of Fane because he is not part of the Dark One's plan. And he's interfering. He's a rogue agent. And also here at this point, he mentions as well that the Shadow can enter your dreams. And how would you like to die in your dreams? Because that's possible. So again, I'm like, ooh, Slayer. Got to be Slayer. Because Fane at this point is like, why can't my dreams be my own, So he's still a little bit vulnerable.
Fane thinks that everything was ticking along nicely until this other guy showed up with his Grey Men. Why can't my dreams be my own? I think that Slayer is still trying to control Fane. Because if Slayer is coming to him in his dreams, he could kill him in his dreams easily. There's no one that can rival Slayer in Teleran Riyadh, except maybe Perrin.
Yeah, but look, maybe Mordeth has. I mean, Fane has some power now. Maybe he can ward his dreams. Maybe he's just, someone's knocking at the door in his dreams, but not actually in the house. Something's scratching at the window.
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't know how all of that works. I think at this point, I don't even think Robert Jordan knew how all of that works. Right about book 4.
No.
All right, so there's discussion to be had here. There's theories abound. What a surprise. Audience as well.
This is where we put the call out to our listeners to say, guys, help us out here. What's going on? Is Slayer trying to control Fane? Is Slayer trying to kill Fane? Is Fane still, commanding Trollocs? What's the deal? Is Fane the one trying to make Bornhold think that the Shadow is after him to sort of accelerate Bornhold's agenda, to sort of raise the two rivers and sort of scorched earth the place? That's what I was thinking. That Slayer is still trying to control Fane, and Fane is trying to make Bornhold think that the Shadow is trying to kill him specifically by sacrificing 2 of Slayer's Grey Men. Like knowing that the Grey Men were coming and killing them in this sort of like, look, the Shadow is trying to kill you, and having the Trollocs attack Bornhold so that Bornhold will increase his efforts, because that's what Fane is really going for, right? He's saying, like, let me loose here, let me raise this place to the ground.
Yeah, but he says, look, the Shadow is trying to kill me by the Grey Men coming, not Dane, is the way I read it. Like, I'm so important to the Shadow.
Does he say that to Dane, or is he saying that about himself?
Oh God. No. Well, I have to go back and look at that. Double check that. Because you and I read different things now. I read the same chapter with different things. All right. But basically, basically he wants free reign. That's what he's after. He's like, look at all this danger around us. Look at what's happening. There's extra players in the game. You set me free. I can get these boys back. I can get Perrin here. I can get Randall Thor here. I can get Matrim Cawthorn, all of these guys back. But Dane's like, all right, just, I've had enough of your crazy shit. Get the fuck out of my tent, and kicks him out at this point. All right, because he is just mad. This is now Audieth with his thoughts, his own point of view now. We jump to his point of view, and he's walking back to the tent. Yes, when he has that crazy giggle to himself out loud, doesn't give a shit, and earns some weird stares from people as well. Like one young guy looks at him like, what the fuck? And Audieth basically snarls at him and chases him away, and the guy runs away. But this is also where he's thinking like, hey, these Whitecloaks are great tools. They are fools, but tools. This is the point that I was making earlier.
Tools is right.
Yeah, a bunch of tools. This is when he's making his way back to his tent. He actually regrets what happened at the Ibara farm, not because he's sorry that they are dead, but because of the trouble it's caused him. He didn't go there to kill them. He went there to try and get Perrin, and named him a dark friend. And of course, Perrin's family laughed in his face and ridiculed him, and he lost his shit, and he killed them all. So he lost control, which is why they died. And this is when the reason he's giggling earlier is because of the memory of them burning and screaming as they died. Like, they laughed at me. Now I'm the one laughing. This guy's fucked up, man. He can feel Perrin. He says, I can feel one of those 3 down to the south. Now, I thought he only had a connection with Rand, but he apparently has a connection with all 3 of the boys. Is he just in touch with Ta'Veren-ness? Like he can just sense them because of his new magical powers, or something the Dark One gave him?
It comes from like when they talk about what was done to him, like all the distilling of his, essence, and like, over and over, like sending him back and like having him focus in on finding out about the 3 boys. That was mentioned.
That's all been
before.
Right. He can sense them anyway.
Yeah.
All right. I had forgotten. Sorry about that.
It's been a year now since we read about that stuff.
Yeah, it's another lifetime. So he's still trying to draw Rand to that region, of course, not knowing that Rand is in the Waste. He's not coming anywhere near this for ever again, apparently. So he's also concerned about this new one that has appeared, with his grey men to hunt him and haunt his dreams, and mutters that nothing can kill him. And he has survived since the Trolloc Wars. So, like, Mordeth again coming out here. This is when also gets some like weird looks from the people in the camp, because he's just muttering to himself and giggling as he walks back to his tent. So, arriving at his tent, he enters to interrogate his prisoner, Fade, of course, staked to the ground inside a Whitecloak camp. This, I've read this many times now, but it blew my mind every time. Like, holy shit, the balls on this guy. So he's made the Fade a proposal. What the proposal is, we don't know at this point. But basically, the proposal requires acceptance or refusal. Accept, and he is set free, and refuse, and he says, I know how to hurt your kind. And then we end the chapter with Audieth talking about agreements and accords, like working out the finer details of this proposal, while the Fade lies silently on the ground and starts sweating. I didn't even know Fades could sweat.
Yeah, I know. Like, what do you say to a Fade to make it sweat?
Well, apparently it's impossible to know because the chapter ends. Not even Robert Jordan knew what made Fade sweat. He's just going to end it there and leave it to your imagination.
I like how the tent on the inside was bright as the noonday sun, so there's no shadows for the Fade to travel via.
Ah, yeah. You ain't going nowhere.
Nope.
Right.
Big chapter. Lot going on there.
8 pages of notes.
Yes. Is there anything you wanted to call out, Phil?
No, I don't think there's a hell of a lot more that you can do in summarizing Audieth's insanity. Fane. He's a mess. He's a royal piece of trash. Somehow I just wish that they had ended him much sooner. But again, he is part of the story, so what can you do?
He's an interesting part. It's cool that there's this sort of like rogue agent operating outside of the rules that everyone else is following. But
there's too many
it's
rogue
vile
agents
to read
already.
about.
Yeah, he's just a filth.
I mean, it's gross, yeah.
But he is, I mean, out of all the rogue agents, he is the king of rogue agents. Like, he is a genuine threat to everyone's plans and has the power to affect them. All the magical powers. But I think the only issue left there, at least for me, left from after this chapter, is what is going on with Slayer and him and the Whitecloaks. Like, what is that dynamic? That's the only question I have.
Yeah. I had a good chuckle at, who was it? Was it Perrin that said something about Moraine having an easy manner? And Perrin goes, an easy manner? Moraine? I never noticed. Joe, you said just about everything I wrote down here. Bornald says at one time that he would have made his camp in Eamon's Field if not for... And then he trails off. ... If not for what? For Fane's killing of the Abaras? Like, are they too raw?
No, Fane is such a loose cannon. Like, even the men that he commands, they are in a separate encampment that looks like a shanty town versus the rest of the Whitecloaks. And he questions continuously this, like, why on earth would this man be sent to him? Like, he doesn't understand it. Like, he is a complete anomaly to what they are. It's
maybe that's it. Like, you can't keep the camp down there with Fane as part of that camp because who knows what Fane would get. Because that's where Fane wants to be. He wants to be in Eamon's Field.
Yeah, he wants to go and kill the whole Eamon's. He wants to level it so that he can get the boys to come to him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's about it. Joe, I've got a whole page full of like little notes and you covered all of them.
Woo! Yeah, I really went to town with these notes. And we'll wait till my next chapter.
Well, then let's move in that direction and go on to chapter 32 called Questions to be Asked. And that one is yours, Willie.
Oh, well, this is not a particularly heavy chapter at all. So we'll get quite cruisy with this one. It's the next morning. Perrin is thinking deep while he is staring into his uneaten bowl of oat. And at the same time, what can only be described as reprimanding Perrin for not straying off the plan. It's to the very dismay of Tam and Abel sitting there like, what's happening here? Like, this kid is talking to an Aes Sedai like she's a little girl. But they have now got their plan. They're going to leave for Watch Hill. And there's unfortunately not all of them will be going. Alana will be staying behind, and Loyal will just draw too much attention. I mean, in that region is just going to shout Trolloc. So much to Loyal's disappointment, he really wants to be part of it, but it's like, look, just stay here. Plus, whispers to him, you gotta keep an eye on Alana. Like, just keep an eye, keep an ear on her. Be careful. Just watch her. So the party is now Perrin, File, Tam, Abel. Don't forget the three Ale, Bainchide and Gull, Thomas and Varen. And they're going to be moving on horseback. No pack horses. Doesn't look like a traveling party. They want to be as inconspicuous as 10 people on a horse can be. Three of them running. But
10 people on a horse. That's going to be very
horses.
conspicuous.
You don't even have to name the Aiel because they are basically invisible to everyone
Yeah,
except the people they want to expose themselves to. Yeah.
Exactly. So they're going to take the farm over the cross country, and they're going to be moving up. And during this, there's a bit of conversation, some unpleasant conversation where Varen brings up the possibility of war, because the Andoran shoulders will at some point get light of it if no news gets out of the area, and Whitecloaks can't just come and take over a whole region. Like, this is just not right. Go back to Amadicia. This is not your country. Move. But most of it is gone sort of in quiet. It's a few tender moments with Vale. She is listening to Perrin all of a sudden. She's very supportive of Perrin, and he considered leaving her behind and even tying her up, but he knew that wouldn't go down well. So he just accepted she's coming with in on this journey. Tam says they should probably by lunchtime hit the Jack's farm. That is going to give them time to at least have a break and rest. As they pass and ride through the countryside, they pass some farms that are just vacated and untouched, and others where there's just literally the chimney standing. That's all that's left of it.
Yeah.
So he gets the feeling that, it's pretty bad. The Trolloc raids are intense. They get closer to midday and get closer to Jackal Scene's farm. And closer on, Perrin can already see boys on the roofs, on the thatched roofs, with bows, calling out, people scampering in. So they're keeping watch, and they're trying to defend their little stake of property there. As they obviously they spot that Tam and Abel is there, so the guard is down. But there's obviously a bunch of strangers. Varen doesn't go by her name now; she goes by her pseudonym, and there's introductions, and the story is that she's collecting old stories, which goes very well with the ink stains on her shirt. She does collect stories after all.
It's the same excuse Moraine used for being there.
Exactly.
Collecting old stories.
At Jackal Scene's farm, there's a whole lot more people. So he has already got his cousin Wit and his sort of extended family there. And also they took in let me just see my notes here, the Lewins. Their farm burned and their extended bunch. So there's a whole heap, from the old granny all the way to little ones wrapped in cloth, where Perrin sees the mother. I forget, note the name down, but he kind of thought about marrying her at a stage. But now she's quite plump and baby in arm. And he's like, dodged the bullet.
Yep.
Get trapped in the two rivers.
But yeah, they get invited inside, and obviously the talk starts because Perrin, they all know Perrin, or they know of Perrin, but mostly all of them have met him. And he's like, look, we've heard quite a few, this Jack now speaking on behalf of the whole, what would you call that, a clan, extended family, or
Yeah.
small
Sept.
village, that not a sept, but yes, they are concerned that obviously this talk and the White Cloak saying that he's a dark friend, and he's like, look, man, I'm no dark friend. They want me because I killed some of them. Simple as that. And if I didn't kill them, they were going to kill me. So you do the math. No, he doesn't want to elaborate much at all.
I love how blunt and honest Perrin is.
Exactly.
He's got no time for beating around the bush.
Yeah, one
it was
of
a
the
bit... Sorry to interrupt you. He says, they killed a friend of mine. I'm talking about Hopper as well. Doesn't have to tell them the truth.
Yeah.
They killed a friend of mine, and they were looking to kill me. So that's the
it.
way it is.
He also, a lot of the guys piping up. Like, I mean, we've known these people, the Ibaras, for so many years. One of the wives, and I didn't write down all the names, said, "Look, Nati was my friend, and I know that these are good people, and there's no way Tam and Abel are dark friends. Like, this is all just nonsense." So, and Paden Fane comes up in that, and Perrin is quick. Like, he is the dark friend. That's the one that we got to watch out.
He brought the Trollocs on winter night.
Yeah, he brings that in. Well, that then Perrin gets offered a place to stay. Like, if you need to almost like hide out, like stay here, don't travel at night. Little know that they'll be traveling perfectly fine at night, but it's not safe out there. And they all sit down to a nice lunch. So tables and chairs get pulled in, and it's all big fat lunch for them. And there's basically up to lunch, and that's the end of the chapter. There's a few other things. Obviously, Will Alcine made an appearance with Vale, and she gave him a smile, and Perrin became in a jealous rage, fingering his axe and putting his arm around Vale, like claiming some property there, and Will moved quickly off from there. And obviously the Aiel they're there, unseen. And while they were traveling on horseback the entire up until midday, they had the time to keep up to the horses and do hunting, and already have got a bunch of rabbits stacked up, tied up onto their bucklers. Like, cool. And then when Bane is, not Bane, Ghoul is told that, look, obviously we don't want you guys seen, so just look out for when we leave. He's like, okay, cool, I'll go sit by myself and just have something to eat some rabbit. And then the other two is like, oh, and then sort of follows Ghoul, and he's thinking, please, can this water oath just hold?
Perrin's thinking like, gosh, the blood could be spilled here while we're away.
Are those two going with him to have lunch or to murder him? Like,
yes,
it could go either way.
But I mean, it's not a particularly big chapter. They've moved on, and I think this really sets up more for Perrin's Taviran-ness to start taking shape in this big Two River saga, which is really exciting. So just a little bit of a setup.
I noticed one cool little thing that sort of scratched my memory a little bit. At one point, Varen seems puzzled by, or she's interested in Perrin's hammer. Like, she looks puzzled by his hammer.
Was it Varen or was it Alana?
No, I think it was Varen.
It's Varen, I think.
Was it Varen? Okay.
So I went and I checked, like, is there anything about Perrin and specifically a hammer in the Careerthon cycle, which Varen would know, right? She knows the light and the dark prophecies. And right at the end, I mean, I read the whole thing. I was going, oh, no, there's nothing in it. And like right at the end, it goes, when the Wolf King carries the hammer, thus are the final days known.
What?
I
did not know that.
No, I mean, just like, I was like, what? I'm sure Varen must know something about the hammer. Like, why would Robert Jordan make a point of saying the words, Varen is interested in his hammer? And then, like Varen would know, like she knows he's got golden eyes. So Perrin's never spoken to Varen about his wolf powers, but she can see his eyes, and Varen would know Elias.
Yes.
Or at least of him, and like his whole talking to wolves, because Elias was telling people that he could talk to wolves before the whole thing went down at the tower, because that's when the Aes Sedai was saying, look, it must be a thing of the power, and they try to gentle him and all that sort of stuff when all that shit went down. So Varen also knows that Perrin sort of, remember when Perrin was acting as a sniffer when Euron was gone? Ingtar was using Perrin to follow the Trollocs. So I think Varen has an inkling of what Perrin's affiliation with the wolves could be.
I don't think she's got an inkling. I think she knows for sure.
Well, giving her the benefit of the doubt here. But now she sees the hammer, and that's in the Careerthon cycle. Yeah. So then I thought, I wonder if there's anything in the Dark Prophecy about Perrin. And there is. It's not as directly. It's all about him.
Watch out for Perrin.
Perrin is going to be the new Nablus. No, there's not something specifically about the hammer, but in the Dark Prophecy it says, in that day, when the one-eyed fool travels the halls of morning, and the first among vermin lifts his hand to bring freedom to him who will destroy, the last days of the fallen blacksmith's pride shall come. So Rand, Matt, and Perrin all mentioned in a stanza of the Dark Prophecy, but it's cool that Perrin features in the Careerthon cycle. Like there's a line about Matt as well, which I forget now, but yeah, that's why I think Perrin
awesome.
notices his hammer. Like, shit, the last days are upon us.
That makes that part even funnier because Perrin thinks to himself, like, she's confused. Haha, finally, I've got her. But actually, no.
Actually, no. Actually, again, she knows way more than anyone else in the room.
She's confused by my hammer. I finally, got one over her. Sorry, dude.
No. There was another part at the Ayelen farm where Perrin is sort of like stroking his axe because I think they're talking about Trollocs or something, and Fael takes his hand, and Perrin thinks to himself that she must be disturbed thinking about what the Trollocs eat. But I think, I think they were busy talking about the other farm folk that were killed and that were buried under the pear trees or something like that. So like a very clear parallel with what happened to Perrin. Perrin doesn't realize that I think Fael was taking his hand off the axe because she's thinking about him, not about the Trollocs. Like she's sort of comforting him because of the closeness to, but Perrin misses that point completely. He thinks he's confused by why would she knows what Trollocs eat, like why would this be disturbing her and why is she taking his hand?
No, she's thinking about him.
dumbass.
The last time he went through this, he cut his fingers on his own axe.
Yeah, stupid blacksmith. But yeah, I also enjoyed really the part about the Aiel like going hunting like while they're keeping ahead of the horses, and Perrin's like, how do they manage to do that? And then right at the end, like, and they seem less tired than the horses.
Yes. And they're out of sight the whole time. No roads.
They only saw flicker of greys and browns in the forest because they wanted them to know that they're close. We're keeping up.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
They let themselves be seen without saying, hey, we're still here.
Oh, it's amazing. I love it.
Something else there. When Varen mentions the war, like if Andor found out that there's a legion of Whitecloaks in the two rivers, that would mean war. Now I thought that's why Pedro Nile sent so many, because there's a part chapters back where Dane thinks like, first of all, like, why is this madman with me, and why did he send me with like 1,000 Whitecloaks here? Because we know Pedro Nile is trying to save the world. He wants to be the one who saves the world from the Dark One in the last battle. So is he trying to stoke division or war, or is he trying to take over the countries little by little? Is this like an invasion technique? Because it does seem odd that he would send a legion of Whitecloaks into the two rivers.
Maybe he expected there to be Shadowspawn, because he's sending the legion on the advice of Ordith, who said, Perrin O'Bara is a dark friend. He betrayed Jeff from Bornhold and blah, blah. Child Bar said that. Ordith said that. Like it's a hive of dark friends. I don't know. I don't know what Pedro Nile would achieve if he instigated war between the children and Andor. What would that accomplish?
Who knows what it would accomplish? He's got a long-term plan.
He's one of the great captains. Maybe he's thinking 5 moves ahead.
We can't keep up with him.
It's other than pulling forces away to a very far remote corner of Andor. But I mean, who knows? That guy's not all there anyway.
But Bornhold is also told to keep it secret. He needs to get in there quietly. And the whole, like the benefit of controlling the ferry at Taryn Ferry is no news can get in or out. Ordith is trying really hard to get rumors out so that they can get to Rand. And Bornhold is trying to keep the rumors from spreading. So if Bornhold is there in secret with no orders to, make sure people hear that the Children of the Light are here, it doesn't sound like a move or a ploy to instigate open confrontation.
Yeah.
But again, who knows what Pedro Nile is thinking and how affected he has been by Ordith and his presence.
Yeah, I'd never considered that having 1,000 Children of the Light in the two rivers would, possibly cause trouble with Andor and the Queen would send people there. Like, it just never crossed my mind. I'm not one of the great captains. But now that it was mentioned in the book, in this chapter, and I was like, oh shit, yeah, like maybe he wants that. Maybe he wants to draw soldiers there or something. I don't know. But like I said, again,
or get a foothold, like defend that area. Like,
maybe.
I'm pretty sure that Pedro Nile would at least have a sort of general knowledge of the geography. Like, he would know it's an easily defended area because there's no entry to it other than across the River Taryn. So maybe if you can get enough men in there, they can hold it. And it's like the forgotten part of Andor, right? Like, no soldiers or taxmen have been there in generations, all that nonsense, as we've been told.
But what's the strategic purpose of holding it?
He's just trying to gain more land, more territory and resources.
Maybe.
I mean, his soldiers are going to need wool and tobacco. So this is a key area to be holding
Fair enough.
Yeah. Okay. Should we move on?
Please.
Rightio then. Chapter 33 is called A New Weave in the Pattern. A new, shitty, hateful weave.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, everyone's having their lunch and in walks Slayer. Basically, so this is Luke Mantier, right? That walks in here. This is Tigrane's brother, Rand's uncle. This is someone very close to our favorite characters.
An all-round son of a bitch.
Yes. And just straight up jerkwad. He, tall man, broad shoulders, reddish hair, graying at the temples with an arrogant look. Perrin despised him on sight. Not Perrin didn't like the cut of his jib. He despised him on sight. Great instincts, Perrin, was my note. He has a condescending smile for all the farm folk, but he stiffens when he sees Varen. But he barely registers Thomas, who he knows would be her warder. So Perrin recognizes that Luke can identify an Aes Sedai from her ageless look, and then doesn't spare a glance for her warder. And this leads Perrin to think this guy is incredibly arrogant and sort of like overconfident in his abilities. Little does Perrin know that is true, but because he has abilities beyond what Perrin might think he has.
Yeah.
Because we know Luke can step in and out of Tel Aranriad in the flesh at any moment's notice. Like, oh, this water's going to come attack me. I'll just step into a dream world and goodbye. Just reappear somewhere else. So he isn't afraid of a physical threat like a warder, but is taking notice of the fact that there's an Aes Sedai in this farmhouse, which he obviously was not expecting. He gives Fail sort of like his best smoldering look, and I think he takes her hand in both of his. And to Perrin's annoyance, she seems to blush and smile at him sort of uncharacteristically as well. But then Slayer sees Perrin, and shock flashes in his eyes, obviously recognizing him from the wolf dream. And Perrin sort of, he recognizes that look as well, like, he's recognized me, but where from? Like, why would he ever, have seen me? So in the wolf dream, he was obviously in his Isom form. So Perrin would not recognize him here or make the connection that it's the same person at all, because nowhere in the story is there another person with two looks. Like this man in front of him is not Isom. So the farmers start, telling Perrin about how much Lord Luke had helped them, what was his advice to them? That, just stand your ground, like when the Whitecloaks come knocking at your door, turn them away at your doorstep. And, for the Trollocs, just keep the boys on the roof to sort of keep a lookout and give you early warning that the Trollocs are going to be here. And then Perrin just systematically starts breaking down all that advice and dispelling the myth completely.
Like a boss.
The one of the stories that the farm folks say is like, it's because of Luke's sort of early warning system and stuff that we barely, escaped the last Trolloc attack. And Perrin goes, but wasn't it the Whitecloaks that showed up just in the nick of time and defeated the Trollocs? And the farmers are like, yeah, well, I guess, but without Luke's guidance, blah, blah, blah. Luke pounces on this perceived mistake from Perrin, and he tries to paint him as a Whitecloak sympathizer. And he reminds everyone, who are the ones that are scrawling the dragon's fang on your door? It's the Whitecloaks, right? Like, turn the Whitecloaks away at your door, blah, blah, blah. And he makes a big show of like how he's, like he's one of the people, and like, he's not for the Whitecloaks or anything. And Perrin says, he reminds everyone, the Whitecloaks want to hang me, okay? I'm not a Whitecloak sympathizer. I have no time for them whatsoever. The Whitecloaks want to hang me, or haven't you heard? And Luke is surprised, and he basically says, okay, well, fine. What's your great idea then? And then Perrin reminds everyone basically how shit the Whitecloaks are, that, you don't want to be under their thumb or the Trollocs. You basically, that old, he doesn't say it here, but the Aiel use a good one, like you're trusting the fox to guard you against the wolf or something along those lines, right?
The wolf and the
Sooner
lion.
or later, you're going to get
the
eaten.
lion.
Yes, that's it. And he says that you guys are vulnerable out here on your farm. You're defending this patch of land, but everyone is trying to do that on their farms, and as long as everyone is scattered and dispersed, you are extremely vulnerable. I was actually in this moment a little bit surprised that Tam hadn't come up with this idea, because that's a pretty basic concept to understand, and for Tam to be sort of like an ex-leader, what was he, second captain of the companions, or whatever the elite forces in Ilion were, he should have come up with this. Tam should have been the one to say to people, pack up your stuff, come back to Emansfield, and we'll put up a united front. But then the other voice on my other shoulder is like, well, Tam is also, he's been here for like decades now, and he is also a farmer. He's also from the Two Rivers originally. He's also stubborn. Maybe that stubbornness and that, like that hard scrabble attitude, like we'll make it work come hell or high water, has sort of clouded his judgment in that as well. Of course, these men must defend their patch of ground, that sort of thing.
I disagree. He does mention in this chapter, I think, was it the previous chapter, that he had already thought about some of these things that Perrin was bringing up, like how the defense is wrong. But remember, he's being hunted by the Whitecloaks, and he's been painted as a dark friend. Like in Villy's chapter, people are already giving him shit, like, oh, the Whitecloaks want you, you're a dark friend. They're not going to listen to him, even if he did say, you should leave your farms.
Maybe
they don't trust him. Like a lot of people don't trust him now. So he's been ousted.
Yeah, there's enough seeds of doubt in that what has been spread about him.
Okay, great. Tam's image untarnished in my mind now. Thank you. Zero disappointment in Tam.
There you go.
So Perrin basically says, yeah, okay, look, what you should be doing, pack up all your shit, get to Emansfield. If you want to turn the Whitecloaks away at a doorstep, do it there. Do it as a huge group. We are far less vulnerable. Everyone is aghast at the idea for all the reasons I said before, right? Like everyone's like there to defend their patch of land, and they're stubborn Two Rivers folk, and they're never gonna acquiesce to these trying times, blah 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 blah. But then they sort of start already like just talking themselves out of it, like, okay, well, maybe it's not such a bad idea. And then Lord Luke goes, okay, interesting plan, But okay, I have to go now. I basically just came around here to see how you guys were doing. I'll be off. And he fucks off. Not a moment too soon. Yeah. And it's not long after that before everyone is literally packing up. Like they're already preparing to leave. Like their first reaction is like, what? Are you fucking crazy? 10 minutes later, yeah, get all that stuff, put it on the wagon, let's get out of here.
It's Taviran for you.
Exactly. And Varen obviously lapping all this up, sitting there just looking at Perrin, like writing down in a little notebook. And Perrin also mentions, like, while these people are packing up, that he's planning on freeing the Luans and the Cawthons ASAP. So he's probably already starting to think like, it's probably going to be today. I'm not going to put this off. Let's get down to brass tacks here. And Varen actually makes a comment about seeing a Taveran at work, but Perrin obviously plays it down like he always does, and she asks Perrin in that sort of quiet moment if Rand has the sword. And Perrin can't see any way to sort of talk his way around it, and he just basically confirms it. So she then quickly pivots directly into a warning for Perrin to watch himself around Alana, but she doesn't give him much detail. And I here had a note, does she suspect bonding? Like we were talking about before, and I won't retread that ground, like Varen is also mistrustful of Alana, which might hint at the fact that she suspects Alana might have ulterior motives already.
Yeah, but Alana's been very vocal about how her interest in Egwene and in Rand specifically, like during the accepted test, she was there, so yes. She's making it very clear, like any Aes Sedai worth her salt would have picked up on this, on Alana's intentions.
Yeah. Perrin and Fail have sort of a moment of apologizing to each other. She for making eyes at Lord Luke to make him jealous, and Perrin apologizes for trying to drive her away from him. All very coy. And as they leave, four of the farm boys join the party going north to Watch Hill. So they've decided they are going to come with these guys now. And Perrin apparently is charged with looking after them. So people are already starting to look at Perrin here as the leader, and Tam makes a call back to this moment a bit later. So they ride off, and they're joined again by the Aiel, and the farm boys are sort of like startled and start knocking arrows, and the Aiel start veiling themselves, and Perrin quickly has to jump in and straighten things out. And much to the Aiel's amusement, they're all laughing. They're like, "Oh, okay, cool, cool. We almost killed each other, hey?" Yeah.
That would have been so funny.
I know. Oh gosh,
We all just killed each other.
Yeah. Will Elsine, the handsome one, he smiles at Bane and Triad, obviously not being able to help himself, and they look at each other and they give each other a quick nod. And I was wondering, like, is this them going, "Are you keen on this one?" And the other one going, "Yeah, okay, cool, he'll do." You know, because they're they're first sisters. They share everything.
Yep.
My note here is strap in, Will.
Will doesn't know what he's got himself into.
Oh no. So then they keep riding north, but along the way, Perrin stops at other farms and sends those people to Eamon's Field as well. You know, basically the same speech that he gave the guys at the previous farm. And with every farm they stop at, more and more boys start joining the party. And it's what the wording here is like they start thinking it's like a bit of a lark, and like the boys are just acting the fool. The first four boys are like they're disappointed that the Aiel don't come and surprise these guys so that they can laugh at them and all that sort of shit. And Perrin snaps at them and he basically shuts them up. And the boys listen to him, and Fael gives them sort of an approving nod, and so does Thomas, the warder. It's like, okay, well done there, blacksmith. As they get closer to Watch Hill, Perrin stops warning farms because under Tam's guidance, like Tam says, okay, Perrin, maybe like stop now because now we're getting close to Watch Hill. And if you tell people to, pull up stumps and go create a united front somewhere else, they would go to Watch Hill because it's closer and the more obvious place for them to go. And you don't want anyone spreading any word of what we are planning to do up towards Watch Hill. So they've stopped warning the farms now. They get closer to Watch Hill, and they later are under again Tam's guidance told to dismount. Perrin tells the extra contingent of boys to stay behind and to be ready. And the language he uses prompts Fael to ask him, "Were you a soldier at some point?" And Perrin goes, "No, but I have heard soldiers speak, and this certainly seems to work." And I think it's not right here, but earlier he actually references Uno. I think it's Uno who's talking about the way that he spoke to the soldiers that he's emulating, just without all the cuss words, which I think he also mentions. But it's pretty cool that Fael, who actually knows quite a lot about Perrin, is prompted to ask if he was actually a soldier because he's that convincing, which is great.
Well, he convinced the warder as well, so...
Yes. I mean, that is high praise.
I tell you.
So then they're in the sort of thicket of trees, and they move through it on foot to survey the Whitecloak camp. Abel points out the prisoner tent to Perrin. He asks him, "Can you see it?" And I'm just chuckling to myself, "Can you see it? Because if you can, Perrin can see through it. Like he is perfectly capable. Don't worry." Perrin asks Tam to go back and settle the boys down before he realizes that he's giving Tam orders, and he tries to take it back, but Tam and Abel both praise his ability. They're both saying like, no, you're doing a great job. And Tam says, "You took charge back at Jack's farm." And Perrin then realizes that since that farm, neither of them had called Perrin lad. Varen's still studying him and taking notes the whole time. And Perrin realizes they have to go free the prisoners now. And he basically says as much to the Aiel. He's like, "Guys, we're not going to sit around waiting yet. We're going to go free them now." So everyone sort of eats, knowing that, like, again, another pro tip from Perrin is like, eat now because you don't know if you'll be able to eat later. We might have to ride. So eat now to, build up your energy stores. And they wait for nightfall. So then this was an odd choice to me. Perrin, Fael, and the Aiel are chosen to sneak into the camp. Now, Perrin, not known for his stealth. Okay, he's calling the
not
shots.
a stealthy boy.
But is he... No, too much beef. Is he the one that is best placed to go in there and go... I mean, ask one of the warders.
He can see in the dark.
He can
better
see.
than anyone else.
Ooh, that is true.
And he can
And
smell.
it is mentioned here that tent ropes, the guy ropes and stuff, like they would make perfect snares, but he can see them. Okay, fair enough.
Aiel obviously, and Fael because she's not going to keep her anywhere. She's going to do what she wants.
He says as much.
So,
yeah, he's not even going to try and tell her to stay back.
Knives are also quite handy to take people out quietly.
Silent. So they'll go in and they'll retrieve the prisoners, and Perrin asks Tam to keep the rest ready to ride. And if he knows a good hiding spot, and Tam says, yes, there's a abandoned farm not too far away from here that would make a good hiding spot. His last word to the Aiel before they go into the camp is, try not to kill anybody.
What a stupid thing to say.
So, I mean, I'm gonna breeze through some of this because the rescue attempt is actually pretty straightforward. I mean, after Tam made it sound like this is an impenetrable military camp, Abel took an arrow last time. They basically crawl up to where they know two of the sentries meet. They do their stupid ritual of like, nothing troubles us in the dark. May the light illumine you, and then spin on their heels and walk off again, and then they sneak through the gap that
without
they just made.
looking to the left or right. Worst guards ever. Yes.
Worst soldiers, guards, everything.
Do you guys remember that original Robin Hood movie? The cartoon.
Yes.
The see one?
Oh, the cartoon.
It's 2 a.m. and all's well.
Is that it? Is
I
that
do not remember that line, but I do remember the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of Robin Hood analogs here, hey? Like the merry men in the Westwood. So now they're in among the tents, right? And while Perrin's sort of sneaking and eyeballing the guy lines and everything, he hears a thud and a groan from behind him and before he assumes this comes from Fael, and before he can do anything about it, he's tackled to the ground by a very big Whitecloak, who he says is at least the size of Master Luan, who is even bigger than Perrin. So this is an even beefier boy, a beefy man, if you will.
Yes.
And he's got his fingers around Perrin's throat and he's busy choking him out. And Perrin's trying to punch him in the ribs, and I'm sure Perrin can generate quite a bit of torque with his right hook into the ribs, and this guy's not relenting. And Perrin can actually feel his vision starting to fade, and he's about to be choked out when the guy on top of him just crumples like bonelessly or whatever that.
Did his bones melt?
Yeah, something like it. Yeah. And there's Fael with a wooden log, and she's just smashed him over the head. The guy foolishly discounted her. Perrin is just like, that's my fierce Fael right there. What an idiot! He shoved her out of the way.
She came
she
with
was nothing.
Yeah.
So they grab the cloak off this Whitecloak, and the Perrin sort of drapes it around him. They make their way to the prison tent, and they can see on the other side of it the lance sticking up over the top of it, and there's a guard here near them. And suddenly the lance on the other side disappears, and two Aiel sort of melt out of the shadows on his close side, and it's Bane and Chayat, and like the one jumps up and kicks the guy in the face, and he sinks down to his knees, and the other one comes around and swings and kicks him again and knocks him out cold. And they drag the two of them. So the Perrin sneaks into the tent. He wakes up Master Luan. And he says, okay, go wake the others, but be quiet. They drag the guards into the tent. They take their cloaks. They throw the cloak over Master Luan, but it doesn't fit. And it doesn't fit his wife either, Elspeth. Yeah. She's also too big for the cloak. She's almost as big as Master Luan. And I think she grabs like one of the conical helmets or something and sort of like tries to put it on her head. And even that doesn't fit properly. So it's this whole comical scene of them trying to make these large villagers look like white cloaks.
And they told Loyal he'd stick out. He would have been fine there.
Yeah, totally. So Perrin knows that it's going to be, I mean, the clock is ticking here. Like someone's going to figure out something's going on pretty soon. So they have to bolt out. So they mosey on over to the picket line where all the horses are tied up. And the only guard of the picket line is on the outside of the camp, not towards the inside where they're coming from. Because obviously, well, I say obviously, but here it's, contradicting that assumption directly. The Whitecloaks assume that trouble would come from the outside, but they're already in. So they're easily able to loosen a couple of horses, try and get Elspeth onto a horse, and the rest of them get on horses, and they basically just bowl for it with very little resistance as the cries start going up in the camp and horns start blowing. There's only one Whitecloak that really actually even sees them, who just dives out of the way, and they sort of rush past him. and I think that Perrin doesn't know whether Matt's sisters are screaming in like fear or joy,
or delight, like pure
or delight, yeah, which is such a Cawthon reaction to what is happening immediately around them. So I like to think it's them sort of like just high on the adrenaline.
Yeah,
and they charge off. And the horns and everything is blowing behind them. You can hear commotion, and they basically, so the Whitecloaks obviously organizing themselves, trying to chase after them. They meet up with Tam and Abel and the rest of the people and the boys in the forest. And Tam says, or Perrin says to Varen, like, could you guys help us out here? And Varen goes, probably not in the way that you would like, but I will tell you this much: it's probably going to start raining in the next half an hour, and it's going to start raining real hard, which will make it impossible for anyone to track them. So Perrin says, okay, well, fine, be that then as it may. Tam, Abel, you take the prisoners and go hide out in that farmhouse I asked you about before. Boys, you're going to come with me. We're going to ride and make as much noise as possible to draw the Whitecloaks away from the prisoners, and we're going to ride straight towards the North Road and just ride down the main road to sort of make it obvious where they are. And Varen and Thomas then actually come with them as well. So they do that. Tam and Abel take the prisoners off. The boys are all hooting and hollering, like parents telling them to make a noise to draw the Whitecloaks, and as they do, they're sort of riding down the road, and they can hear the horns from the Whitecloaks actually getting further and further behind them. So they've quite easily really gotten away from these guys, and the boys ask Perrin, like, okay, so what's next? And his response to that is, now we hunt Trollocs.
Oh, that's that line.
Yeah.
Yeah. This, the Whitecloaks must be really pissed off with how easily Two Rivers people penetrate their camps and free prisoners on a regular basis.
Yep.
It's not going to happen a third time, is it? Probably.
First the older Bornhold, now the younger one.
Yeah.
The ability of Perrin in this is severe in nature. Just after midday, he just switched on and he's like, nah. This is not going to work. This that I've seen here is not working. We got to make this work. Like, and even down to in my mind, because I couldn't remember like what it was with how did they free them, did they storm the camp or whatever. But it was like, no, it's happening tonight. Done. Get it done. There we go. You stay. You do. Go.
You can see Perrin's resolve strengthening as it sort of goes along. Like first, this is common sense at the farm when he's telling, this is not me. I don't know why everyone keeps calling it a plan. It's not a plan. I'm just, like telling you what is the smart thing to do. So go do it. And then like going and then also telling the other farms, like ever since saying it the first time, he realizes it makes sense and it is a plan and he is promoting it and he is taking charge. And I mean, he only realizes it later, but he's calling the shots, and Tam and Abel have already said, you go ahead, buddy. You take charge. We're happy to follow. Tam says, this is not the first time I've had to follow a younger man who knew what needed doing. Which is
a straight up compliment. Tam's. What needs to be done. I'm happy. Go, man.
Yeah.
Like I'm just gonna throw it out there. This is just a great chapter. Like, just love it. I just absolutely. And this is the problem, because when I hit this chapter and now we hunt Trollocs, it's you don't just stop reading there. You can't just go like
stop reading after that line. There's no way.
And that is very purposefully done by Robert Jordan, right? Because the next chapter, not Perrin.
No, but equally rad.
In just like a completely different way. You're like, oh, yes. Oh, shit, it's not Perrin. But oh, shit, it's fucking Rand.
Yeah.
And I'll get to this in the next chapter, but the next chapter icon is the dragon. And whenever I see it, I'm just like, okay, here we go. Shit is going to happen now. Rand is already, and we're only like basically halfway through book 4. Rand is this like overpowered character from a video game or something, right? Like wherever Rand goes, shit is going to get upset, but Rand is going to come out on top and people are going to bend to his will.
Oh, yeah.
So is there anything else about this Perrin chapter that you guys wanted to touch on?
How far ahead have you guys read after this Perrin chapter? Have you actually read
only the chapters for this episode
where they go actually hunting the Trollocs?
No, not yet.
No.
So don't spoil it for us, Jody. Damn, come here with your spoilers in our spoiler cast.
Yeah, what is this? A spoiler cast?
Well, I won't say anything then.
We have also read the book, so if there's something cool that you want to say,
No, it is not cool.
nothing cool happens. Move on.
No,
Okay.
nothing cool.
Okay. Okay, so the next chapter then is chapter 34, inconspicuously named He Who Comes with the Dawn.
Ah.
Dragon logo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sticks out, eh?
All right, chapter 34. He Who Comes with the Dawn. So we join Rand and Matt jogging back to the camps from Rhuidean, just as dawn approaches. They're in pretty bad shape, covered in blood. Matt, especially. I mean, he was dead. Like 20 minutes ago, he was dead. All right. It's so bad. He's so in such bad shape that he's not even complaining, because Rand makes note of that, because Matt is a chronic complainer, and if he's not saying anything, he's really badly hurt. Yeah. So Rand is also fully aware of the prophecy at this point. The Aiel, this whole returning at dawn thing, destroying the Aiel, breaking the world. He's having this whole like inner monologue as he's jogging back. He's starting to accept some of it, but he's already thinking like, how can he avoid other parts of the prophecy, like breaking the world again? Like, if I could, I'll do the rest, but if I can skip that part, I'd be pretty happy. And he's thinking, maybe I should just jump on Jayadeen. I don't know what that horse's name is, and ride off. Sure, and just ride off where no one can find me. But he knows that he can't. Duty heavier than a mountain. All of that stuff. Either he does it, there's no one else, or the Dark One wins. It's like really not much of a choice. Either I've got to shoulder this burden.
He's already fully embraced it.
Yeah, not everything. The whole breaking of the world part again, he's not stoked.
No, but the responsibility.
Yes, and I think
of being the dragon.
Not a lot of it, I suppose, is Lan's tutelage. Lan showing, like, teaching him and taking him under his wing. Like, not, of course, Tam as well raised him well. Of course, he's the dragon. He's prophesied to do this. It's in his blood, literally. And but I think that Lan talking about like duty heavy on the mountain, and like a man must do this, and like he's really helped him over these last 2 years. I think it is at this point in the series.
I think it's one.
I think it's between one. It's more than one.
Year.
But
they call it a year in the stretch.
Oh, well, sorry. Proved wrong instantaneously. No need for pins. All right. So as they reach the camps, just as the sun rises and smashes them with heat, who are they greeted by? Couladin. He comes running out and he's shouting, "Where is he? What have you done to him?" And Rand's immediately like, "Who? Where's who? What?" Rand only has eyes for that shade and that water that's up in those tents there. He is parched and the sun is baking. Like the sun has just risen, and immediately, because on the way back, he even mentions how cool the breeze feels without his coat on. But like the second the sun rises, that's gone. It's no, like, it doesn't warm up during the day. It's instantaneous. So yeah, Bear? How are we going to pronounce this wise one's name? I don't know.
I say bear. Like
bear.
Black bear. Grizzly
Black bear. All right. Bear, she has the water in her hands. He can see it. And Couladin is between him and this water. I don't want your shit now, dude. I want the water. But Couladin is standing there, not to be ignored, and behind him are the Shido, some of them veiled already. Apparently, Muradin, now he has to explain to Rand like who he's talking about. His brother had entered 2 days before Rand, and Couladin can't believe that Rand could succeed where his brother had failed. So Rand must have murdered him. Things are not looking up. So before Rand can even gather his next thought, Couladin and 2 other Shido launch their spears at them. Rand reaches for Saidin, flaming sword in hand, cutting the 2 of those spears in half, and Matt barely managing to deflect the third with his Ashendare. Couladin points out that, look, they have weapons, and they're covered in blood. So this is proof that they cheated. They went into Rhuidean armed, and they killed my brother. And I'm thinking, on the surface, this evidence does seem to confirm Couladin's theory.
He makes some valid points, yes.
Yeah, all right. He's a bit too emotional for an Aiel, but I can see where he's coming from. If you don't know any better, it would look like that. So more spears fly at them. And these they dodge. It's a whole tuck and roll maneuver that both of them do in opposite directions. And coming up, he turns around and he sees that the spears that have thrown have not only penetrated the rock and are standing like speared, stuck into the stone of the ground, but they're again in a perfect circle around the exact spot that he had been standing. This even shuts Couladin up for like 2 or 3 seconds. Everybody's like,
the exact words, Joe, is the spears bounced off each other and then hit the ground. So like they made contact in the air and spread out into a circle.
wow.
So they're all through to exactly the same spot, and then that's why Couladin and everybody's like, what the fuck?
What more proof do you need, dude?
Mm-hmm.
Karakan. Bear intervenes eventually, and screaming about the peace of Rhuidean and all of that stuff. She tells old Kuladik there that twice you've tried to break it. Once more, and you're grounded for life. I think she actually uses the word outlawed. So basically, mom telling the son off. But like, look, you're going to be outlawed if you don't stop this shit right away. And outlawed means that no sept or clan will accept him. He'll be driven out. He has to go live on his own, and he'll basically die. Like, he won't be welcome.
He will be hunted like an animal.
So like, you don't want that, and that actually works and shuts him up because
for once,
he does actually, eventually piss off. But we'll get there. She attests to the fact, this is Bear, of course, that Rand and Matt entered unarmed. Like, she was there, she saw it, they didn't take any weapons, and she asks Matt as well, like, hey, did you find that weapon in Rhuidean, boy? And he goes, I was given it, old woman. I paid for it, and I intend to keep it. So he's like, already, like, he's dying. He's just back from death. He's already back to his old Matt ways, but he's basically clinging on, clinging on to life at this point. He's not doing well. She looks at Rand and tells him to rid himself of that power-wrought flaming sword and show them the signs before all hell breaks loose, before Couladin stirs everyone up again. Like, stop this shit, just show them the signs, let's get on with it. Rand's, of course, like, signs? Oh, yes, now I remember. Ruark had once shown him the dragon around his own arm, on his left arm. So Rand, like, pulls up his sleeve and puts his left arm into the air to show the dragon. But Bear is like, all of the signs, you moron. And she basically just takes the water skin that she's got, throws it at Matt, and then rips Rand's right sleeve up. And even to Rand's surprise, he's like, oh shit, there's another one. Like, I know the prophecies, and I should have been expecting that, but it's still kind of taken him by surprise. And he's got the 2 dragon tattoos on both of his arms. So he thinks again, twice and twice shall he be marked. And this is the herons and the dragons now. For remembrance lost, the history of the Aiel. So he's definitely, through those columns, brought back the remembrance that was lost. And then the last part of that stretch of the cycle is the price he must pay. And that's still outstanding. He doesn't know what that must be. So Bear and the other wise ones actually seem afraid, which is unsettling to Rand. Because, of course, now this is a major thing. The prophecies have been fulfilled. Here he is standing in front of them. He came with the dawn. He is marked twice. So yeah, she raises the other arm for everyone to see, and the Karakan is there. Everyone rejoices. Nope, that didn't happen. Nothing. Silence. Couladin just goes, turns around and leaves with all the other Shido. The Jindo as well. They also just go, and turn around and leave as well. And Rand's like, I don't know what I was expecting at this proclamation.
But it wasn't that.
It wasn't this. Like, normally people are like, when like prophecies are fulfilled, people are like, behold, and la la la. Nothing. 0 shits given. Everybody's like, cheers. So literally the only people left out there are him and Matt and Bear, and Lan is there, by the way, with a thunder head face or thunder cloud or whatever thunder analogy is being used to describe his face, with his hand on his sword, ready to jump in there because he's got eyes on Couladin. And Egwene, she's also there. Egwene's also there. Don't forget. So at least now he can have a drink of water. This is when Matt realizes, like, oh shit, I've got the water skin in my hand that Bear threw to me earlier. So they start chugging. He's throwing it all over his face and everything. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen a film called The Three Amigos.
Very long time ago.
Long time ago, but yes.
There's a scene where they're in the desert.
With throwing the sand.
They're trying to drink their water. One of them's got literal sand coming out of his water.
Sand pouring out of his water bag.
And then the last amigo, Chevy Chase, opens up his water bottle and it's full, and he's pouring it all over himself and rinsing out his mouth and spitting it on the floor, throwing the half full bottle onto the ground, and the other two are dying of thirst. Just like really hit me in that scene. It was exactly like that. Like he's in front of all of these Aiel, just splashing water all over himself. Like, fucking Matt. Rein yourself in a bit, buddy.
Yeah.
Anyway. So Egwene asks, like, what happened? Did you murder Muradin inside there? But Bear interrupts, like, no, it is forbidden to speak of what happens in Rhuidean. So I thought it's like kind of like Vegas, like whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. The same deal in Rhuidean. So he asks for Moraine. He's like, I could really use some of that Aes Sedai healing now. I'm not going to complain about it because Matt and I are in desperate need. But they don't know that she went to Rhuidean as well because she left after them, and she hasn't come back yet. And Egwene's like, yeah, but I mean, it's been such a long time, and he's trying to figure out, like what's going on. And he's like, whoa, what do you mean such a long time? And it's been 7 days since they had last left. It's a whole week.
I think it's just been just an evening. Cool.
Yeah, like they went in, he looked, he watched some movies in some columns, and he came out, and Matt was dead, and he brought him back to life, and there we go. And it was like one night. It should have been like they came back the next day, kind of a thing. So he thinks immediately, I've lost a week. Like, oh my God. And he starts all these thoughts going through his head. All he can think is they could be catching up, figuring out what I'm planning. And I'm thinking, who? The Forsaken? I assume it's the Forsaken. Because he's trying to get ahead of them and before any of their plots can come in, like do what they least expect and do it as fast as possible. And now he's lost 7 days. The wise ones tell him that, because he asks, like, well, how long will Moraine still be, if she hasn't come out yet? And they say, look, if she doesn't come out after 10 days, she won't be coming out at all. No one has come out after 10 days. So he's like, oh, shit, another 3 days I've got to sit here and wait. I've already lost 7. I could possibly lose 10. So he's worried about her to a degree, but he's also worried about, more importantly, the whole Dragon Reborn, breaking the world, saving humanity thing kind of takes precedent at this point, I think. Yeah. So he's like, well, look, if she's not here, can you guys use the one power to heal me, you wise ones? And they're like, look at each other like, no, look, we took a different path to the Aes Sedai. Healing is not our it's not our bag, baby. This is not what we can do. And he's angry about it. It's like, pretty much you guys are useless. But Egwene has to explain to him, like, look, not everyone, not even every Aes Sedai can heal. It's mostly just the yellows, and everyone has their own talents. So you can't.
Which she has to say there, because the wise ones think that she's an Aes Sedai, and she's not healing him.
Yeah, I suppose as well. Yeah, I'd forgotten that she's a big fat liar,
huge liar.
So they do have some herbs and some ointments, though. I suppose Nynaeve would be proud. So they're like, all right, so we can help you with some of our homeopathic healing techniques. So they're walking back to the tents with that, asking Lan and Rhuarc to take Matt, but Rand insists that they come with him. He needs some dudes in his corner. He's not going into that tent alone. He needs some backup.
He's defiant. He says, no, I want them with me.
Yes.
Like he's starting to throw his weight around.
Yeah, he
can. He's got the golden dragons on his arm, man.
He can now. So he does.
So on the way up there, talking to Lan, Rand learns that the wise ones had kept the truth of Moraine leaving from him, and at one point had to physically hold him down to prevent him from going, and then convince him that, look, even if you did go after her now, it could end up with you dying and killing her at the same time. Like, she's gone, it's out of your hands. But I mean, Lan is in a bad way, and has been. I mean, shit, if you think about it, 7 days.
7 days.
It's not just been a day, like it's not one night. So he is really freaking out at this point about Moraine. So he asks Rhuarc's advice on, like, how am I going to unite the Aiel now that I'm the Kara Kara and I've got these things on my arms and everything, like, if they won't even look at me, like I just announced it to 2 septs, they just 2 clans actually, and they just left.
Walked off.
No, like, cheers. Yeah, nice tats, bro. Cheers. So his, Rhuarc's answer is basically have patience, like understanding the prophecy and actually seeing it fulfilled are 2 different things. And not everyone is going to accept it. Like the Shido and Couladin, there's probably going to be other Aiel that are only going to see you as a wetlander as well. So, like, this is a no-win situation. You're going to get something, but not all of it. All right. So he asks as well, Ruach, one of the questions we had in the last episode, does everybody see the same visions when they go through the columns? And again, he is forestalled by Melaine this time. Like, shut up, you don't talk about it, what happens in there, what happens in Rhuidean. Or you can just send Lan and Matt and Egwene away as well first, and then you guys can talk about it. She tells him that it's not customary to talk about it in any way, and like even when people do, they do it reluctantly. And he tells her, look, I'm here to break customs. Get used to it. I think he even uses the word "get used to it." Like I'm here. Does. Yeah, which it seems very modern language to me. Like,
well, no, he says, I mean to change what is permitted and what isn't. Become used to it.
Oh, become used to it. That's a bit more fantasy speak. All right. I've just got get used to it. So anyway, Ruach tells him no one sees exactly the same thing going through there or through the same eyes until the sharing of water and then the agreement of Rhuidean with those very, very old Aes Sedai are. So right at the end, everything converges again, and he thinks it's a matter of bloodlines. This raised an interesting point to me, which means that Rand's ancestors served Lanfear. Because if he go all the way back in his bloodline, it was, what's his name?
Charn,
who was there in the streets of the Age of Legends, who was serving Mirren, was her name at the time. So like, what a connection, man. If you go back all those thousands of years, that Rand is the Dragon Reborn, has Lanfear after him, and his ancestor 3,000 years ago actually used to serve her as an Aiel. Like, that blew my mind. And I only realized that when doing my notes on this chapter, not even when I read the chapter, only when I was like really breaking it down, like, oh shit. Moritz, you have your finger up.
I also had a realization while doing my notes.
What?
In Rhuidean, these visions are happening in reverse chronological order. The agreement at Rhuidean is the first vision.
Yes.
And the sharing of the water is the second. So Ruach's phrasing of no one saw the same thing until the sharing of the water and the treaty at Rhuidean is odd, because those would be the first visions you see.
Yeah, but he would know that they're going backwards in time.
Yes, it's just the way that he said it made it sound like the order in which you see them is different, or what you see is different up until you see those visions. I don't know. It was odd.
Maybe he listened to our last podcast and he has it in the wrong.
He must have.
That explains it all. It should have. It should be
Don't
required.
bother going to Rhuidean. Just come listen to this.
Episode 32 is the one you should be going on. Yeah. So anyway, I thought that was super interesting. So just to give you some breakdown as well, the sharing of the water is Kyrian, the beginning of Kyrian. The Kyrianians were the only people to never attack the Aiel. That's the only place they felt safe. And it's so sad as well that like the only people that were their friends are now their mortal enemies, like more so than any other. And Rand thinks
Thanks
as well.
To one idiot.
One moron. That's all it takes. It's always one idiot that's ruining it for everyone. So Rand thinks like if there was no sharing of water, the Aiel would not have let the Kyrenians use the Silk Path. They would not have given them the cutting of Aviendha Sora. Laman would not have had a tree to cut down in the first place, which would have meant that the Aiel would not have crossed the Dragon Wall, and his mother would not have given birth to him on the slopes of Dragon Mount. So like all of these little threads over thousands of years, all coming down to like all these little decisions, and blew my mind as well. Like shit. He was talking about remembering as well, like Moraine talking about the age lace and how intricate it is. And we can see these threads of this lace right now, right here. So before entering the Wise One's tents, Lan holds Rand back to ask about Moraine. Like, did he see her? And Rand's like, no, sorry, dude. Didn't even know she was out of the camps. And warn him about Couladin. Like he's seen men like him before, and ambition burns in his belly. Like he won't see reason, and he's going to be trouble. Ruach agrees with this assessment. He concurs that, and with the Couladin advice, and that he must watch that one. And he offers Jindo bodyguards for Rand at all times. I think it's like 50 bodyguards or something. So like we'll always have your back.
100.
100, even more. So it's like, listen, doesn't matter if you've got those tattoos on your arm if these guys kill you before you even speak to the other chiefs.
Yeah.
So we gotta watch your back until that happens. All right, so inside the tent, Matt is already being tended to by one of the guys, Shane. He's got his shirt off. She's busy cleaning all the dried blood of him. Poor guy. And Melaine gets to work on Rand. She's worried about the old wound on his side. She's like, come, let me have a look at what's keeping you doubled over. And he's like, look, this is nothing you can do. And there's nothing anybody can do about it. Egwene even says that Moraine tried to heal it and she can't heal it, which makes the wise ones kind of look at each other like, what? Something Aes Sedai can't do. So already that little charade is being shattered there. Bear gives Matt something to drink, which he says tastes like the inside of his boot. And the old Matt is coming back little bit by little bit. He even makes Bear and Sienna laugh with a little grin and some of his witty words. It's like, I'm sure you put a little extra something in there just to have that flavor, that lovely flavor, or whatever that is, that line of his. But it's back, and he's making wise ones giggle at his grin and stuff. Like, whoa, dude. This guy.
Bear also addresses him as young man,
yes,
not boy.
Yeah, there's a line later on. So Rand asks Ruach here, like, how can he tell all the clan chiefs about himself? Like, how can we get all this, meetings together? And Ruach's like, look, if we were to send messages, it would take messengers. It would take weeks and weeks for everybody to gather. But I know some people who have some tricks up their sleeves. Like the wise ones could go into the dream and tell everybody in one night. And Amis is like, thanks for the kudos, but it would take us at least a couple of nights. Faster though than sending people on foot running through the fucking waste. And he tells him of a place that they can meet that's closest to Rhuidean, that's closest, like the next closest spot that everybody could get to. The fastest would be El Kair Dal, or the Golden Bowl, where there's a similar peace between the clans that Rhuidean has, so there won't be any violence when everybody meets there. Matt repeats the name, but with better pronunciation, obviously, than me or anybody. And he doesn't even seem to realize that he now fully understands that he speaks the old tongue perfectly. But everyone else in the tent kind of looks at him. Egwene looks at him. Rand notices it. And Rand notices Egwene looking at Matt thoughtfully and thinks she's spending too much time with Aes Sedai. Like, she's already got that. She's making her own plans for this man in her brain. Ruach suggests that the wise ones dream walk and then tell all the clan chiefs to meet. And they are hesitant. But Rand tells them that they need to move quickly. The Forsaken are loose. And the wise ones are not surprised. They don't even, bat an eyelid to hear that the Forsaken are loose. Obviously, because they've been walking in Tel Anriad, and they've seen the Forsaken plenty of times. Run into them several times.
Probably.
Yeah, that's what I think is why they're like, yeah, we know already. I mean, they are, the Forsaken are meeting in Tel Anriad all the time.
Yeah.
And that's why they're so strict with Egwene in her training.
Like, it's dangerous just by the mechanisms of how the place works, and the Forsaken are running around in it, and they know it way better than you do. But anyway, Rand has a little line here. He says 9 of them still live. I'm like, ooh, dude, way off. But technically not wrong at this point. I think the only one that's dead is Bilal at this point. He's been bail fired. He ain't coming back. So that leaves 12. Now, Ishamael is coming back, so he's only temporarily dead. And then the 2 at the Eye of the World, Agenor and Balthamel. Yeah. So I suppose, technically speaking, there should be 10 at this point, but he's a bit off. But anyway, still, 1 Forsaken is too many Forsaken at this point. So 9, 12, whatever, it doesn't matter. So finally, Amis agrees to go and chat to everybody in the dream. And Rand starts asking about his mother. Like, did you know my mother? And Amis knew her. Her name was, how would you pronounce this? Shail, I would say. She came over the dragon wall with pack animals. She was dressed in silks, where Amis at the time, when she was still a maiden, and some other maidens were on like a walkabout, I would imagine they were doing. They were just cruising around trying to prove themselves, and they had made it almost to the dragon wall when they saw her coming over it. Dressed to the nines with all of this food and these pack animals, like, whoa. And they were just so intrigued by her. Like, if it had been a man, they would have killed him. But because it was a woman on her own with all of this stuff, dressed in the way she was, they were like, this is this is fantastic. We gotta hang out. Like, they didn't approach her, they just watched her from a distance, just so curious. And they followed her for days and watched her as her animals died around her, her food ran out, her water ran out, and she would not give up until she finally collapsed and could not get up again. And that's when they approached her and decided to help her, because they were just so impressed with this woman and gave her water. And it was like, she was so buggered that it took a full day before she could speak again after they tried to resuscitate her and give her water. But her determination was just phenomenal. Ami says that his mother, Shail, at this point, never ever gave her real name, but she spoke of a child that she loved and a husband she did not, that she abandoned back home. And Rand's like, oh, I've got a brother, you know?
You've met him.
You've met him. He's kind of a dick, but he's, you know, he's a cool guy, I suppose. Right?
He's handsome, though.
Yeah, he's really good looking. Like, that makes up for everything else. She, especially for Rand, she did all of this due to a foretelling that she had been given by Gitara Moroso. Was this the same Aes Sedai that?
Oh, yes.
Oh, right. That Moraine and Swan were with when she spoke about the Dragon Reborn.
Not only that,
What?
it's the same Aes Sedai that told Luke to go to the Blight.
Yeah. All right. Well, she had messages for everyone, apparently.
She did.
Yeah. I suppose when the dragon, he is reborn on the slopes and whatnot, she just collapsed and died. That was just enough. She's like, I'm done being the messenger. It's all just bad news. So apparently the message was that she had to become a maiden. Shail or Tigraine at this point. Tell no one about it. Leave and cross the dragon wall by yourself. This is some pretty hectic shit that you got to do. Keep it all a secret at the same time and become one of the maidens of the spear at the same time while you're at it. And then only return when the maidens had gone to Tar Valon. And it's like, whoa, man, that's a crazy thing to lay on someone. If she does not, there is going to be disaster for her country and possibly the world. So the usual, do it or the whole world dies, kind of a thing.
But don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
It's our secret.
So Rand recognizes the name Gitara Moroso. He doesn't remember exactly where, probably from all of his reading in Tyr. And maybe somebody mentioned that he's been hanging out with a lot of Aes Sedai, but realizes that he has a brother. And he's like, oh, sweet, a half-brother at least. And he's always like thinking about how he dreamed when he was younger to have a brother and a sister and what they would be like. So, but he's got other things to do at the moment. He also realizes that his mother was a badass because she became a maiden of the spear in a year. That's all it took her. They're explaining how young girls from the age of 10 are started training to be maidens, that they grow up learning the bow and the knife and all kinds of shit that they have to learn anyway. I suppose it's like basic education in the West. But when they're 10 years old, they can start training. And it takes them their entire lives, basically. But his mom did it in a year. Finds out about his dad as well, Janduin, who was a clan chief of the Tardad Aiel. That is Aviendha's sept. She's the Tardad as well. So more little connections. And he was apparently a legend too. Well, of course. I mean, look at the son. He's got
youngest clan chief, something like that.
Youngest clan chief ever. He brokered peace between warring clans that had been at his throats for hundreds of years. He made alliances that no one else could, and he would have done something else, some other great alliance or whatever, united the clans if Laman hadn't cut down the tree and interrupted his whole plan.
Was the Goshian and the
Tardad? Yes,
I think so.
Yeah,
it's the Gaul and Cheyenne.
Cheyenne and Bane.
Almost got that done. But had to go over the wall and fight some Kyrenians. What happened to him, though, he's dead as well, because Rand realizes at this point that all the stories that your father was, it's all past tense. He's like, oh shit, my dad died, obviously. So apparently what happened was, after he knew that Shail was pregnant when she crossed over the dragon wall, and no woman is allowed to carry a spear when she carries a child, but he couldn't deny her anything because he loved her so much, and she had him wrapped around her little finger. So he let her go, and she died, obviously. And he could not forgive himself for this, so he gave up being a clan chief. He just said, like Catswain. Fuck this shit. I'm out of here. I don't want to be in charge anymore. And they told him, "Listen, no, you can't do that. You can't give it up." And he was like, "Dudes, I'm out of here. Cheers." And he just walked away. He joined up with some other young Aiel men, and they went into the Blight to fight Trollocs, as some of these young morons tend to do. While he was there, he met a man who looked exactly like Shael. Her brother, perhaps? He met Luke. Luke is the one that killed his father, because Janduin thought that Luke looked so much like his beloved that he would not raise his spear to defend himself or kill this man. And Luke ran him through quite easily, because we found this out because some of the young men that he went with returned and they told the story of what happened. So that's how we know what happened on the other side.
So Gitara sent Shael to the waste, and she also sent Luke to the Blight, who was ultimately the killer of Shael's husband. Or not husband, but lover.
Father of her second
baby
child.
daddy.
Yeah.
Baby daddy. Yeah,
baby daddy. So, wow. Threads in the pattern, man. Age lace. So later that day, I mean, not later that day in the Blight, later that day back in our time, or in this time in the waste, sitting inside the opening of the tent with Matt looking over the valley. He talks with Bear about the prophecy of the Kara Khan, and he shall spill out the blood of those who call themselves Aiel. And I thought this is a great line, because the prophecy says of those who call themselves Aiel, not the Aiel, because they are not true Aiel. Even if prophecy states it that way, words it that way. Blah, 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 ... Yet a remnant of a remnant shall he save, and they shall live. And I thought, after our last episode, of everything that the Aiel went through over thousands of years, they're basically all going to die. That's their destiny. Like, literally all of that. And then Rand's going to come, and he's going to spill their blood for his own purposes. Well, to save the world, I suppose. But they're basically all going to die. A remnant of a remnant is going to survive. And the time of the Aiel will be over.
Which just for me finally also cemented why Ruach and the Wise Ones and everyone is so like, I mean, they knew that he who comes with the dawn was coming, but they also know what that means for the Aiel. It basically means the death of the vast majority of their people. I mean, obviously that's not going to sit well. That's a heavy burden to carry.
Yeah.
That's probably why the Jindo and the Shido's like, all right, it's happening.
So
turn around, walk away.
Well, they all went home to go and write their last will and testament. Start packing away things and
get their affairs in order.
Yeah. Well, that's the end of that. They are practical people, calling up their lawyers. So, I just like that point. But the point that for me was like after everything they did, after everything they suffered, I was like, shit, what a way to end. Yeah, Lan is there too, by the way. And he has been watching the valley, but he's sitting outside in the direct sunlight, completely unfazed the entire day. He dresses in black, doesn't he? Sitting in the sun. He's on that same little granite outcrop that Couladin was standing on earlier. And he's just crouched there staring at the valley. Later that afternoon, Aviendha returns. When she notices Rand, she gives him a look that, and I quote, should have burned him to ash on the spot. She is not stoked because she has just seen what he saw. She knows the history and she knows what Rand means and all of this shit. And you son of... I've had such a shitty week. You're sitting up here in the shade. You son of a bitch.
Ready to destroy my people.
Exactly. So, of course, the Wise Ones come scurrying out to meet her and they take her back into the tents and, obviously dress her because she's still stark naked, sunburnt to hell and gone. And later on, when Rand sees her, she's dressed as a Wise One and not stoked about it. But she does come into her own a little bit later. This is new to her. We'll cut her some slack. So later, when Rand notices her dressed like that, she also notices him looking. And again, her expression is enough to, like I wrote you, like her expression is enough to make the Dragon Reborn look away with fear. Like,
she is fierce.
She is fierce, man. So in the late afternoon, we're skipping ahead a little bit. In between this, Rand refuses to eat. The wise one's trying to force him to eat. And he's like, nah, he's just putting his foot down. I don't know if he's being stubborn or whatever the hell he's doing. But later in that afternoon, Moraine returns too. Lan sees her coming, leaps off his rock, runs down the side of the hill there, down the side of the mountain that they came to have to go and fetch her, scoops her up in his arms, and then runs shouting and cursing for the wise ones to hurry their flaming asses out of their tents and come and help her. Again, once they take her into the tent, Moraine has to physically bar Lan from entering the tent to go after them. And he's left pacing outside. And this is that scene where he's pacing back and forth, punching his fist into his palm, just, stressed out. Poor guy, man.
Can you, at this stage, just imagine how shit Couladin is feeling? Like his brother's still not out. And there's now been 3 wetlanders that has gone in and gone out in the same period of time.
Yeah.
They must have murdered him. They must have. It's the only explanation to this poor fool. Anyway.
Prideful fool.
Rand is glad she's safe, but he's also happy now that he saved 3 days. Those 3 extra days that he was worried about, don't have to worry about those. Matt asks him, like, so what are you going to do? Meaning, like, are you going to have dinner with us? And Rand's like, I'm going to do something you're going to love, Matt. I'm going to break all the rules. I'm going to do what nobody expects. And he's like, no, I meant, are you going to have dinner with us? And Rand just like laughs.
Me, I'm hungry.
Yeah, like, I'm just going to get some food if you want to come and have dinner with us. And Rand's final thoughts at the end of this chapter are somebody was going to learn what it meant that he was the Dragon Reborn. He was going to break the rules in a way no one expected. Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah.
And that's how that chapter ends.
Yo, biggie again.
This was a biggie.
Yes, there was 8 pages of notes each. So
Oh shit. Okay.
that's like Moritz length notes.
Yes. Sorry, Joe, that was not by design.
I'm great. When I looked at the chapter allocations and I saw chapter 34, was it? And I saw that dragon banner and he who comes at the dawn. Sweet. Shotgun, taking it. No complaints.
Vil, did you have anything you wanted to comment on?
Oh man, there's plenty to comment on. I mean, there's just so much in that chapter. I mean,
yeah,
all of them get out of Rhuidean and all that they've gone through. The Aiel is now aware that they are going to be broken and killed eventually. It's a lot to digest there. And Rand just wants to keep moving. He's on a path. He's set. That's like, there's no more questions around what I need to do or what I feel like doing. That's like, I need to do it and get there. But yeah, it was nice hearing about his mom and dad, getting a little bit of But Ham will always be his father.
Yeah.
Yes, he says that.
There's another scene there as well where Egwene tries to comfort him when we all learn about his dad dying and his mother dying, and he's like, Tam's my dad, and I can't feel lost for something I never had. Like, he's unfazed. He's just listening to a story, and he notices, like, why do women always want to do that? Look at Matt and Lan and Ruach. They're not even looking at me. Like they get it.
I can very, very much relate to this of being an adopted child. You've got parents and you've got biological parents. You never knew them, so it's one of those things. But woman,
maybe you are the Dragon Reborn.
Hey man, I'll just show you my golden tattoos after I went through some stone pillars the other day in the park.
Speaking of which, I forgot that Rand's tattoos actually like shimmer.
Shimmer, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like they're metallic looking. Which is pretty rad. I want me some of those. Matt's wound around his neck sounds hectic. A thick wheal, nearly black.
Yeah.
Eesh.
How now? This is where my question started coming in. Like, how long? They were in there for 7 days. How long did Matt hang? Because was Matt 7 days in with the Elfin?
That was a long, infinite corridor he walked through.
Because but not 7 days, or was time different? Because when they went through the
time is
doorway,
definitely different
there. When they went through the doorway the first time, there wasn't any timeline shenanigans there. But there were 3 of them: Moraine, Matt, and Rand went in pretty much the same time, but there was no sort of, you guys were missing for 7 days.
Yeah, like when they go, no one in the stone, where the fuck
And
were
he
you
was
guys
going
the
to
whole
sit
week?
there for an hour until he's going to go after Rand into...
Maybe it takes more time juice to grant wishes than it does to give answers to questions.
Yeah, that sounds like solid science right there.
Yeah, just it's a bit of a difficult one for me to work my head around.
That's how Morris introduced the concept of time juice.
That's what runs everything. Time juice. There is no time without its juice.
It's all running on time juice.
Of course.
There's no way Matt could have hung there for 7 days. So you have to assume that he came out just before, or he was spat out by. I mean, who knows what the elf or the eelfin did to him? It's the fox people, right? Yeah, the eelfin.
Look, maybe as soon as you go inside that fog, time changes. There's a time dilation field. Anybody who's watched the Stargate knows all about this. Plenty of episodes.
Well, maybe the
time
entire
dilation fields.
Rhuidean is a time.
Yes. The
Time
second
trap.
time moves faster inside Rhuidean than it does outside. So they were both inside for like an hour or whatever it was, and they both came out at the same time. But as soon as they come out that fog again, they come back into normal time, in which
that would
7
make
days
sense.
has passed.
Yeah,
There's no way he hung there for 7 days. He would have decomposed.
There's also no reason for people to go in and come out at such varying lengths of time, like 7 days or 10 days, which they say no one has come out longer than 10, after longer than 10 days, if they're all seeing sort of similar visions or, if they're having the same experience in there, but coming out. So maybe like an additional 10 minutes in there results in coming out on day 8 instead of day 7.
Yeah,
exactly.
So sort of maybe they stopped and first pumped water and got the fountains going, but clan chief on his, or a potential clan chief on his own, would maybe sort of take in a few things here and there. Shider would probably try and steal something.
Or eat his own eyes.
Yeah, scrape out his own eyes.
I love the image of Bear running down the mountain with the water skin. Like as they show up and Couladin is like, shouting shit at Rand, Bear runs down and she's described as running like a girl. Like she's not impeded by her age at all, with like white hair streaming behind her. She's described as old and frail, and she's just bounding down this mountain, and she is one of the oldest. It's cool. What else? Rand is not underestimating Moiraine ever again. He thinks to himself, if she was in there, could she have affected what I saw?
I meant to write that down. I did not. I noticed that too.
When Land warns Rand to watch out for Couladin, he calls him Rand.
He doesn't
Not
call him
sheepherder. Calls him Rand. There's another part when Rand says something to the wise ones to sort of piss them off, and Milan throws a bread, like half a loaf of bread, at Rand's head, and Matt catches it and starts eating it like nonchalantly. Just sticks out his hand, catches it, and starts eating.
Shot for the bread, thank you.
That's the second time in this stretch where Matt sort of like reached out and protected Rand, like because he gets the third spear when Rand cleaves 2 of those spears thrown by Couladin and his cronies. Matt's Shandarai is the one that gets the third spear. So twice in Matt's injured state, he steps in and, like, I don't want to say saves Rand's life because I don't think the bread would have done that much damage, but he intercepts a projectile aimed at Rand.
Look, he's no bloody hero. He was just hungry. It's all bread.
That's what you would say. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's cruise along then. Shall we?
We shall.
Excellent. Right then, the next chapter is chapter 35, called Sharp Lessons. Why don't you educate us, Willie?
Well, again, this is not a very big chapter. I've been on light duty this week. Sharp lessons. I'm not going to get into recapping the entire section of Elaine and Egwene meeting each other in Tel Alan Ruoid, because we did all of that last week. If you want to know what they speak about, go back to that episode. But yes, no, Elaine and Egwene have their little meeting as they planned, and the stone is, they are in the Stone of Tear. Calandor is still driven into the stone, and Egwene sees Elaine dressed in bright yellow breeches with a sash and bare chested, and she turns around and feels shame. She's like, oh no, this is how the sea folk dress up in the boat. And poor Tom and Julian, they don't know what to do because half the crew are women and this is how they sail. And she just wanted to feel how it feels like with your nips in the wind. And but she feels like someone is looking at them, and Egwene can feel the same because yes, the Forsaken are around there. So
yes.
Anyway, they recap the events on both sides. Elaine telling her about the Windfinders and how they can obviously channel massively, and she's actually been learning. And Egwene informing her of where they are and what's been happening on that side of the Dragon Wall. So that is all known to us now. But what happens then after the whole recap event, and we do see that Egwene can now really handle the world of dreams, where Elaine not so much, even with her ring that she has. She's constantly shifting, and when speaking of Rand, there's a dagger in her hand. Like she's, all over the show. It's kind of like a patchy internet connection, jumping in and out. But Egwene gets pulled out of the world of dreams, like viciously, like no times for goodbyes. And she realizes that she's back in her tent, and in the shadows, a miss is sitting. And before she could do anything, she gets basically grabbed with a power around the ankles and at sort of face level held upside down. And while this is happening, she's trying to, but now a dress or a sleeping frock or whatever she's in is falling all to her armpits, and she's hanging upside down, pretty upset. But Mrs. Eyes starts changing, and her skin then starts melting into scales, and sharp teeth are coming out. So this is now turning into a proper nightmare. And for Egwene, this is very real. Like, what is this that's happening now? She tries to channel and she can't. She's blocked, and she tries to bash through the block like forcefully, but nothing happens. And this creature that her miss is turning into then bites her in the face. And Egwene, like,
As you do.
wakes up in the same position, same tent, same everything, like scampering, like what the hell? And then she sees a miss sitting there again, and she goes straight for a knife, like trying immediately to channel. The block is still there, and a miss saying like, "Okay, this is now enough. Like I have warned you. You're a liar. You don't. And if you're gonna carry on like this, like I'm not gonna teach you. We made an agreement. The place is dangerous." And she's like, "Yes, but I have to meet my friends there." And she's like, "No, it's either this way or it's not going to happen. And none of us will teach you." So reluctantly, Egwene is, and while also saying your favorite line for her, Moritz, "This is not fair."
I wrote it down.
Yes, she's having a little moment of, what's the best way to put it? Like just being a little brat, that she has to follow the rules. And she's like,
Her
this.
line is, she had given her word, but this was also unfair. Boo fucking who? You gave your word.
That should count for anything. Aes Sedai.
Yes.
Yeah, she's being very childish. My
Quotations.
previous chapter didn't mention it as well. She sticks her tongue out at Rand. Rand tells her like, "Oh, because she muttered under her breath," and Rand said, "Okay, since you are so nicely, you can also stay inside the tent while we talk about what happened in Rhuidean." And she sticks her tongue out at him.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? And now she's all like, Jesus.
No, but Egwene does get what is coming her way because she's going to be made to look like Pippi Longstockings. And if she doesn't watch out, she's going to be cut to wear a girl's skirt. So she doesn't realize that she's going to have to braid her hair into braids over ears is very much saying that she's a childish little girl. And that's what the wise ones will do to her. But
doesn't Amiss say to her, like, if you still can't listen, I'll find you a doll to carry around?
A doll, yes. No, there's, but eventually in this as well, Amiss and said, okay, I will accompany you to meet your friends in the world of dreams. Because this is
she tests her. She makes
see
her
how
sit
long
there
she can
in
sit
quiet.
in quiet.
She says, okay, so you can keep your demands to yourself eventually. And then she makes her wait and sweat it out. And eventually she goes, fine, I will come with you.
Yep.
Just to see if she can hold it in.
But then this is the first time now that Egwene also realized Nynaeve is not even in the tent. And she's like, come, we got to go. It's middle of the night. It's, no, Nynaeve.
Nynaeve was never in the tent.
Moraine, sorry. Fix that up.
Well, technically,
Moraine.
he's not wrong. She realized Nynaeve wasn't in the tent.
I wasn't wrong. Thanks, Joe. Then Amiss tells her to come, but don't even bother getting dressed. And it's freezing cold. She's barefoot, walking over freezing cold stones. And they get up to a tent, and to her surprise, Amiss dons her birthday suit and dives into the tent. And she does the same. A lot of nudity again. And dives in, and surprise, surprise, there's all the wise ones, Moiraine and Aviendha, sitting in the sweat tent, which is cool. As she gets in, it's like the humidity and the heat just strikes her, and sweat comes pouring out of her pores. Like, okay, cool. This is kind of comforting, but there's no pillows to sit on. It's just bare ground. Like, this is sweat and drip onto the ground type of tent. And there's now obviously a debrief of this day that has passed. And Moraine has got somewhat the upper hand. She's very subdued, but she's now been trying to herd Rand or guide Rand for a good period of time. And all the wise ones are going to like, cool, like, how are we going to control him? She's like, good luck. Firstly, Manetheren, stubborn as hell. Secondly, Taviran, Dragon Reborn. Like, it's not going to happen. Like,
No.
You do your best. But they do come up with a bit of a plan. And it comes as part of the sort of, I would say, best way to say initiation of being an apprentice wise one for Aviendha, that she will now be his shadow from the morning that he wakes until the evening that he goes to bed. And she has a real visceral reaction to this. She is just absolutely pissed off, to the point where eventually Egwene tells her, like, look, do it for Elaine. Like, it's like, no, I will do this, but only because my near sister. And then the wise one's like, no, you won't do it for that. You'll do it because we bloody well told you to do it. And no other reason. Don't come here trying to be clever. No. And it's like, didn't they threaten her with something else? But yes.
Maybe she needs to dig a couple holes
and
fill them
dig
up again.
Digging holes and fill them up to build some character overnight.
Yeah.
And that's when Egwene's like, shh. Being a novice is hard, but this is probably going to be harder. And that is pretty much the end of the chapter. They have their sweat tent moment, and then it's all done. A very quick one.
I've always liked the idea of a sweat tent, not due to all the mixed gender nudity. Just it's a very effective way of getting clean with very, very little water. That's that's a good idea.
Moraine has a quote at the end of this chapter that I quickly want to read that just reiterates her motivation, which ties back to, all that sort of Machiavellian thinking that we were exposed to when she was in the heart of the stone and Rand was making his proclamations. We got that cool point of view chapter from her. But she says, I've given my life to finding the Dragon Reborn, finding Rand, and seeing him ready to face the last battle. I will see that done, whatever it requires. Nothing and no one can be more important than that. That is her only goal, and she is determined.
Well, at least she can be focused now. She doesn't have 3 that she had to worry about, like who it could be.
Yeah, she knows who it is. Just disappointed in Egwene, really, for being so goddamn childish, giving a word and then breaking it. Like, grow up a bit. And then the part where Elaine has a knife in her hand that you mentioned earlier, Vil, is when Egwene is busy telling her that, you know, the Shadow are not big fans. Someone might even try to kill Rand. And Elaine steps towards Egwene and she says to her, "You will see that doesn't happen." And Egwene thinks in that moment, this wasn't a question or a request.
That is
Elaine
her
is
royal
stepping to her buddy.
bloodline.
You will see this doesn't happen, with a knife in her hand.
Yes, ma'am.
Righto. Gotcha, Elaine. Don't worry, I'll put Aviendha right on it.
Yes, it's just Aviendha is having such a hard time going from
Yes,
bad
she is
to
sickling.
worse. Oof.
Okay. So, speaking of Aviendha,
Mm.
should we crack on?
Let's do.
Last chapter for this episode, which is chapter 36, called Misdirections. So the next morning before sunrise, the Aiel break camp and they start departing. Just describing the harsh landscape they're moving through. It's everything you would imagine, just, you know, rocky, sandy terrain, red dirt everywhere, hardly any plant life whatsoever. Rand and Matt are busy riding with a sort of 400 odd Jindo. The Shido are running in parallel in the same direction because they're all heading in the same direction, but they're about a quarter mile apart. And then I think they say that it's about roughly double the number, at least 2 to 1. The Shido outnumber the Jindo, so there's about 800 of them. And then in the middle is the group of wise ones with their Gaishain and then Moraine, Lan, and Egwene. Basically riding in the middle to sort of keep the peace so that the two clans don't find themselves in close proximity and maybe sparks fly. Rand notices that Egwene is wearing her hair in 2 braids for some reason, so it's already begun. But Aviendha is also with Rand, and she's tailing him as instructed. And he sees straight through the plan. He's like, obviously they think I won't chase away a pretty face, and she's here to spy on me, which is exactly their plan and their thinking. It doesn't need to be very clever to be effective, I guess, if Aviendha is going to just, you know, shadow him, almost literally. But Rand can tell that Aviendha is not a fan of his. She is just like daggers at him the whole time. If looks could kill. And at one point, she starts describing Elaine to Rand in pretty like graphic physical detail, supposedly to make him remember how beautiful she is and to remind him that Elaine is the only woman for him. And Rand tries to stop her, blushing, but she keeps pushing, and she says it's right to blush after the way he treated her, after she had laid herself before him in her 2 letters. And then Egwene says that she meant every word. And Rand is like, she meant every word in both letters? How can that be? They would have to come from 2 different people. Like, they were so opposite in their communications. And in that moment, he says he finds himself missing Min. So he's busy talking to Aviendha about Elaine missing Min.
Yep.
I'm not going to elaborate on that too much. We switch to Matt's point of view. Matt just thinks everyone is pretty. Aviendha is pretty. Melaine with those fierce eyes, she's also pretty. Like, he's just matting it up. Matt gonna mat.
Coulidan's hot. Yeah. Like
He's got nicely turned calves. But he's obviously, I mean, again, Matt gonna Matt, thinking about how he's not capable of leaving. He won't make it in the waste. He can't like just peel away from you and go do his own thing. Like, see you later, guys. And he doesn't truly know whether he actually wants to or whether he would even be able to. Like, he can't even, you know, like in Tyr, can't even say the words. But at that moment, a maiden scout comes back to tell Ruark that there are peddlers ahead. The scout apparently is one of the first ones that he played Maiden's Kiss with. It flashes him a smile, and he doesn't seem too perturbed by it. So Matt had a pretty decent go at Maiden's Kiss, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
But the peddlers are apparently approaching them. And as they go on, they notice the peddlers approaching in 6 wagons. The 2 frontmost wagons looking like they are basically housing, and 2 wagons that look like any other peddler's wagon that came to the 2 rivers. Tall wheels, canvas top with all kinds of stuff like jangling off the sides and probably full of wares. But then the last 2 are basically water tankers, right? They're pulling these huge wagons full of water through the waste, which seems like a pretty quote-unquote high-tech solution for the problem of the waste, which is pretty cool. But when the wagons see the Aiel, they stop and they basically wait for the Aiel to approach. A large man with a wide-brimmed hat steps off the lead wagon, and when I read this about the hat, I was like, that's Matt's hat. There it is.
Don't get too attached to the hat, dude.
No, or your head. Doesn't it get decapitated? I don't know, Joe,
I haven't read that far.
Have you read? You haven't? Okay.
No.
I can't remember how he dies, but I think he dies, and I think he loses his head. Anyway, time will tell. So Ruach and what's the name of the Jindo leader? Hearn?
Hearn, yeah. Hearn, I'd say.
Hearn. They go forward to meet with this peddler, but Rand, even though he realizes that they intended it be just them, Rand rides after them, comes along, and that means Aviendha and the 100 bodyguards as well. So it's now like a whole contingent. I think Matt also just comes along, but only Couladin comes from the Shido. He comes by himself. The big peddler introduces himself because he's a big man as Hadnan Kadir, and he says that he is looking for Cold Rock's Hold, which is where Ruach and his clan are from, right? He's clan chief there of them. I don't know exactly how it all fits together. Cold Rock's Ruach.
I believe you.
Got it. But Ruach tells the peddler, you're going in the wrong direction. If you had to keep going here, you're going to reach Rhuidean, and there are dire consequences. And the guy sort of pales when he realizes, oh shit, that's where I'm going. Sorry. And Ruach asks him, why don't you have any Aiel guides? How did you get this far with no guides? And Kadir seems to think that he was just sort of like unlucky not to meet any along the way. But Ruach seems skeptical. There's no way someone's going to come this close to Rhuidean without running into some Aiel and therefore having guides.
Something smells fishy.
Something is amiss here. We should note the chapter icon for this. Did you guys see?
I don't remember. Of course I saw it. But
it's Lanfear.
Oh, yeah.
It's the moon and stars. It's Lanfear's icon.
All right. No, I know that Lanfear's with them.
You do now. Has she revealed herself in the chapters you've read?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we will meet Lanfear in just a minute here. But Ruach says to the peddler, fine, you can travel with me to Cold Rocks. That's where our ultimate destination is. And Couladin goes, why not me? Why can't he travel with me? And Ruach just goes, did I miss something? Did you become a clan chief when I wasn't watching? Because if not, shut up.
Go stand over there, little boy. The adults are talking.
Yeah, pretty much, exactly. And Couladin sort of begrudgingly accepts this, and he tells Ruach that, fine, but we will also camp near Cold Rocks. He who comes with the dawn concerns all the Aiel, not just your people. And Ruach begrudgingly has to accept. He says, we will accept you as guests. So Kadir thanks Ruach, and he offers to show him his wares, sort of like, okay, cool, well, do you want to trade? And Ruach says, nope, we'll continue on. We'll stop at Imre's stand. Imre's stand?
That's how I pronounce it.
Yep. For the night. And when we stop there, you can show your wares. Everyone's sort of getting ready to leave. Matt just pipes up, I need a hat. They're done talking with a serious businessman. It's like, by the way, I need a hat. I'm not going to wait till tonight. Anybody got a hat? I want a hat like that. And a big woman steps down from one of the wagons and she shouts, done. She's got this sort of husky, alluring voice that draws many people's attention. But when you lay eyes on the source of this voice, it is this hideously fat woman in a creamy silk dress that seems to be hugging her figure in a really uncomfortable way. She just seems really, really, really out of place. She introduces herself as Jesus Christ.
She introduces herself as Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ. Yes.
Whoa.
Kylie?
Kylie Minogue. That's even worse.
Kylie
than Jesus
Minogue.
Christ.
Jesus Christ, Kylie Minogue. Sheogi. Kylie Sheogi. Kylie Sheogi. from now on, I will just call her Lanfear because
All right.
that's who it is.
Okay.
My note is here. We know who this is. Notice the chapter icon?
All right. Now I'm going to have to go look at that name again to try and figure out how to pronounce it.
Matt, he hands over the gold coin that he promised he would pay for a good hat. And basically, Lanfear makes Kadir hand over his own hat to Matt, which is basically brand new. And she offers the others something, but Kadir tells her, look, we've been told we can trade at Emre Stand this evening. And she looks sort of bemused by this, and then she turns back to the wagons and she tells Kadir to move. So it's become obvious to Rand and Matt exactly who's calling the shots here. Matt notices the wagon that she climbs onto has a Gleeman on it. Asmodean?
Yeah. Yep.
Surely, right?
Yeah.
And Rand sort of has this weird introspective moment where his thoughts seem to be elsewhere, and his interactions with Matt are also a bit odd. But Rand's initial thought is that it seems to be a thing of great honor to be the one to accompany the peddlers to the next campsite. And this G-Ito thing doesn't make any sense to him. And Aviendha sets him straight and she goes, this has got nothing to do with that. This is about Couladin acting as a clan chief and Ruach having to shut Couladin down. He can't be seen to be allowing that kind of behavior. But then Rand makes some other comments along the lines of Kadir's eyes give him away. He's dangerous. And Matt's like, okay, yeah, sure, Rand. It's all in the eyes, right? You can tell whether a man's dangerous by looking at his eyes. But as the wagons ride off, Rand says to Matt in a loud whisper, which is weird, we ride with evil now, Matt. Watch yourself, while grinning. And Matt's like, fuck, Rand, are you completely mad already?
Yeah.
And I was wondering here, like, does Rand... Rand's right. Whether he knows it or not, they are riding with evil. But is he talking about Kadir or is he talking about Lanfear?
I think he's talking about Kadir.
I think so too, because Kadir is also not... He doesn't seem to be on a level.
No, he's a dark friend.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. And I don't know how he knows. I don't know. Maybe he senses something.
It's in the eyes, Joe.
It's in the eyes, obviously. Maybe he senses something because, obviously Lanfear is using like a mask of mirrors or whatever it's called.
There's
some channeling going on. There's two Forsaken like a meter away from you.
We were just talking earlier about the Forsaken are loose, and I was going to say, yeah, and you're about to meet two of them.
Yeah, they're right there.
In person. So Rand also goes on to say, but what cause have I for worry with Moraine, the Wise Ones, and Lanfear watching out for me? Okay.
Yep.
I guess my befuddled facial expression doesn't play well on an audio medium, but no. Okay, cool. You're assuming Lanfear is looking out for you. She's been sort of helping, but Moraine told you, do not, or even Lanfear, I think, said, don't bank on my help. Like, I'm not going to be helping you. And Rand also says it has begun and there's no turning back now, however the blade falls. So Matt eventually follows, thinking that Rand is really walking the razor's edge now. And immediately his thoughts turn back to how to leave, and if it wasn't too late already. And that's how the chapter ends.
Ooh. Yes,
yeah.
Dudes. What's coming after this? I've seen the future.
I've seen the future, and it is bloody.
What's Two Rivers, Perrin's story now? What happens here in the Waste afterwards? Like, not obviously we all know how this book ends, but like in between that, bunch of bad shit happens.
Really, because I'm super fuzzy on it. Obviously I remember the Battle of Two Rivers. And I'll be honest, what I remember about what happens in the Waste is basically what happens at Alcair Dal, like Rand standing there and proclaiming himself. Does he make it rain or something as well? Like, I think water is involved.
He pulls up the water that's underneath the waste or something. That he
something
felt
like
in
that.
something. I don't remember. There's water where there shouldn't be water. That we can agree on.
And obviously there's the whole thing with Asmodean now, and Lanfear sort of like handing Asmodean over to Rand with his diminished power. Like all that stuff is still to happen.
Yep.
But Rand and Asmodean have a fight at Rhuidean.
Like skimming. While they're skimming on those discs.
Yes, Rand chases him using skimming, but they also they tried Asmodean tries to wrestle the Kuden Kaal away from Rand at some point. Like they're literally rolling on the ground. Well, it's with Asmodean, and Asmodean is not around for a very long time.
He's not in the waste. Yeah, like afterwards they kind of leave the waste eventually. I think it's dude, so much is going to happen. Yeah, because I'm waiting for all of this to happen, and I've read very far ahead, and I haven't even got to the Battle of the Two Rivers yet.
Yeah, that's the very end of the book.
Or what happens at El Khair Dar.
Yeah.
I think that's the proper pronunciation. Yeah. Matt would be proud of me.
Isn't there still some plot line in the waste during the next book?
There's got to be. Heaven. There's too much that I remember that is not going to possibly happen in the chapters left in my book.
But you got a frowny face. What do you think?
No, I'm just also, a lot of the stuff for me is kind of like, oh shit, oh yes.
Yeah,
that clears it up. Well put.
Was there anything about this chapter you guys wanted to chime in about?
Yes, I'm going to try and pronounce her name. Kiel Sheogi. That's how I pronounce it. Kiel Sheogi.
Can't you just call her Lanfear?
Yes, you can. It's going to be much simpler.
But it's quite ironic that Lanfear would take the shape or the form of a grossly overweight person.
I think there's
scantily
clad.
A
practical reason.
No one would expect.
There's enough food on the wagons.
If Lanfear has, say, she's got Elsie Grinwell disguise on.
Yeah.
The disguise is floating like a centimeter or like millimeters above her skin, and she can break through it, and her moving clothes underneath it can actually break through the illusion a lot easier.
I'm with you.
If the illusion around you is like those samurai fat suits, those not samurai ones, the
sumo,
that's
sumo
it.
Suits.
Then there's more room to move inside the illusion without breaking through it. And other people won't get as close to you personally because they'll be judging their distance from the fat woman based on the outer edge of the illusion instead of where Lanfear is.
Wow, Moritz.
that's well thought out.
Yeah, I would never have gone down that road.
I could be way off. Like it could be just a funny joke to herself. Like, I wonder what it's like to be ugly.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's as well. Like my guess was that no one would suspect it would be Lanfear. Like everyone would suspect that she's the most beautiful woman in the world that ever lived. She would never disguise herself in this fashion.
Well, like what was that woman in the Heart of the Stone? Old Sylvie,
yeah. So she has a knack for it.
All right. So, Willie, Jody, did you guys pick a favorite moment?
Yes.
I did.
Excellent. So, Willem, what's yours?
Mine is back in the Two Rivers, and the moment that Perrin sees Lord Luke, and everything from then of him taking charge, because Lord Luke is a wanker. I will take charge and show these people how it's done. Not put young boys with bows and arrows on thatched roofs to burn at the thatched roof. Yes, that play there. Perrin just taking charge. Tam, Abel, all of them recognizing it. Even the warders giving him a nod. So
beautiful. Jody, I'll ask you what yours is next, but first I have to say that was also my favorite.
I know. You don't have to. I'm just gonna read it. It's 3 words. Is that the one?
No. My favorite moment is Willie's. It's
the
exact same one as Willie's.
Before I say mine, it's going to be the exact same as yours. All right. Mine is also Perrin, Two Rivers. But just that moment when they're riding off and he screams, "We hunt Trollocs." It's like, what do we do now? Yes. What do we do next? "We hunt Trollocs," Perrin shouted over his shoulder. From the way the laughter redoubled, he did not think they believed him. But he could feel Perrin's eyes drilling into his back.
Nice. Yeah, strap in, boys. Perrin means everything he says. Always.
Yeah, our favorite moments have turned into like favorite stretches. They've, like our podcasts, they have increased in duration over time.
And scope.
Everything after page 7 is my favorite moment.
My favorite moment is the Shadow Rising.
Okay, that doesn't count. We can't do that.
No, but it is. I mean, the fact that all three of us are drawn after He Who Comes with the Dawn and everything that entails, like what really hits home is our boy Perrin, like not even leading the battle or anything, just like starting to take charge, and what that means, I think, is also really cool. Oh, Joe, you're wearing your Beefy Boy T-shirt.
I only wear this shirt on recording days, specifically for
Excellent.
recordings.
It's very fitting.
Thank you very much.
Very fitting.
Again, it's just because it's such an emotional, and I spoke about it even before we started. It's that passage of writing is so tied into our emotions with the young man, his family, loss of family, and there's love, there's everything in there to make it juicy. Like, it doesn't take away anything that He Who Comes with the Dawn. It's a massive chapter. There's so much that happens in there, but there's no specific sort of thing that you are emotionally tied to yet. The Aiel are still new. It's still scattered. It feels like I feel hot when I read it. It's like, get out of the waste now. It's like
that's true.
The sun.
Yeah, start sweating.
Right. There's lots of cool points, lots of cool moments as well, but nothing like Billy says. There's no emotional attachment, like Matt coming back to himself, calling her old woman, and like all those little quips. I mean, sure, but like Matt has, if you had to choose, favorite moments, you could have something from Matt in every chapter, even chapters he's not even in. So
I had to stop myself. I relegated my original favorite moment, which is Matt being Matt again, to an honorable mention and charming the wise ones, because every time you read about Matt from now on, it's like, oh, he did a cool thing, or he said a cool thing, or just love his way. Yeah, it would be too easy to pick it. But what you guys are saying is true about like Eamon's Field and the Two Rivers. Like the boys are our surrogates in that world, right? We identify, we feel like we come from the Two Rivers, so there is that sort of like that pride and that protective nature of like, yes, okay, cool, get our people together, defend yourselves against the Trollocs and the Whitecloaks. Don't just put up with this shit. Kick Luke the fuck out of town.
God, that fucker.
So to our listeners, send in your favorite moments, your corrections, your theories. I mean, I think there were a couple of points in this very episode where we straight up asked you to help us out. Tell us, please, put us out of our misery. What the fuck is going on in the Two Rivers with Slayer and Ordeath and the Whitecloaks? Who's doing what? What's Pedro-Nile's plan here? Enlighten us, please. And you can do that by just tweeting us at Blood and Ash Pod, or messaging us via the social media links in our episode description, which are hyperlinks, so you can just click on them and it should just open up the appropriate social media platform for you to reach out to us, which we truly enjoy. We had some more emails from just fans saying thanks for the podcast these last couple of weeks, and obviously contributions from people like Mick in the callback section. Please do write in again about any episode. We could be 30 episodes ahead of this one when you listen to it. And if you have anything to say, still write it in, because chances are we have not thought of it and we have not corrected ourselves, and it will happen in the future. Again, no statute of limitations there. So, next time on Blood and Ashes, we are going to try something slightly different. We are, thus far, for book 4, tackling about 100 pages at a time, which for the most part, except for one episode, equates to 6 chapters. Now, we all have busy lives. We're all middle-aged dads, as you would know from our various profiles around the internet. And making this podcast is a labor of love that has to be done in the time that fits around our busy family lives with small children and our regular day jobs and everything else that life throws our way. And so we are going to try and pare back the length of these episodes just a little bit by trying to aim for not 6 chapters, but maybe only 4 in a single episode. For those of you that have been listening to the show from the beginning, I think our trailer, our teaser on podcast platforms still says that we'll be aiming for 1-hour episodes. And we have consistently been hitting 3 hours, which means a lot of work for everyone involved. So we're going to try and do 4 chapters for the next episode and just see how that affects the workload, if at all. And those will be chapters 37, which is Imre's Stand, to chapter 40, called, drumroll Jody, Hunter of Trollocs.
Oh yeah.
So those are the four chapters that we will cover next time, which immediately, I'm pretty sure the chapter icon for Imre Stand, which is the next chapter, is also a Trolloc head. So
Yes.
it is confirmed.
That's what I was alluding to.
Very well. So action-packed episode next time, which will be in 2 weeks' time. Thanks for the confirmation, Joe. Flashed up on the screen. Trolloc head confirmed. So Trolloc action next episode. So without any further ado, let's get ready for that episode. Off with you. Do your reading and let's record ASAP. But thanks for your contributions this evening, gentlemen, and see you next time.
Cheers, everybody.
Thank you.